The following is an interview with Ellen Penner Efron. The interview is taking place on Wednesday, June 29th, 1994, at Mrs. Efron's home in San Antonio, Texas. The interviewer is Ellen Robinson Epstein of the Center for Oral History. These tapes were commissioned by Mrs. Efron's nephew Bernard in honor of his aunt. Okay, I'd just like to begin by asking you to tell me your complete name.
Ellen Penner Efron.
And where and when were you born?
12.
In what city?
Semyatych, Poland.
Okay, and at what age did you come to America?
Between 6 or 7.
Okay.
None of us ever really knows our real age. We just had to almost make it up because they didn't write it down. And when they got big enough, and we got big enough to try to figure out if we could, get some paperwork on it, the city was demolished, completely demolished during Hitler's time.
Do you have any memories from Semyatych?
Yeah.
Tell me what you remember about what the town looked like.
Well, it was just a little town, small, and I remember we had a synagogue. We lived right in front of the synagogue. I remember they had a big rock, just as big as this table almost, and it was real shiny. And my brother and I, who was about a year and a half younger than I am, we would always sit there, and watch people. And when I went to Poland about 12 or 13 years ago, he said, "Now, be sure and see if that rock is still there," but it wasn't there.
And this rock was in front of your house?
In front of the house, right by the synagogue, and the synagogue wasn't there either.
What did your house look like that you remember?
Well, it was real nice. It was well kept. My mother was a good housekeeper. And we had one bedroom. I don't know how we slept or where we slept, but there were 6 of us. But somehow or other, we made it.
I'm going to ask you about your siblings in a minute, but so there was just one bedroom, and did your parents stay in that bedroom?
No, my father left. My father left us and went to America because he wanted to get his family out of Poland. They were, pretty bad. And it was also, our little town was between, on the borderline between Russia and Poland, and even Germany was close. And at that time, I remember my people talking that my father left because he had 3 boys, and they had a czar at that time. They had a czar when he left. See, he left in 17, and they were taking boys at a very young age. So
for the army.
For the army, yeah, and they treated them terrible. Just treated the Jewish boys terrible. And so my father says, no, he's going to go to America and bring us all here. And in the meantime, war broke out, and we couldn't make it. I didn't get to see my father until I was about 7 years old. And when he left, I was about 2.
Okay, we're going to talk about all that. But let me just ask you, your father's first name was what?
Morris.
And on his side of the family,
yeah.
What's the farthest back you can tell me about?
Well, I don't know too much about his family at all. I know very little. I think my sister, Miss Lipschitz, I think she knew more about that. Because, see, I'm the 7th of my mother had 8 children altogether, and I was the 7th. So most of them were already, scattered or dead, or in fact, I'm named after one of the grandmothers.
Which one were you named after?
My mother's mother.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a little
bit. Would you believe her name was Elke? Elke, and when I got to this country, they said, oh no, they don't want me to have a name like that, Jewish name. So they named me Ellen.
That's interesting. I'm going to come to your mother's family in a minute, but on your father's side, did you know his parents at all?
No, I didn't know anything. I knew he had some brothers. I met some of his brothers. They were in Kansas. They lived in Kansas City, and they were all merchants, But that's all I knew about him.
And you don't even know your grandfather's name, or do you know your grandfather's name on your father Morris's side?
Mm-mm. Let's see. I don't know. Now Ms. Lipschitz should have known all that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she knows all about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. As I say, I was just way down the line, and I just know more the things that happened, in my time.
Right. Okay. Now you said you did know your mother's parents?
I'm named after my mother's mother. Uh-huh.
And her name was Elke. Do you know what your mother's father's name was?
Efron. Another they call him, which would be Abe, I guess. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And do you remember the family name? Your mother's maiden name?
Bundy. Bunde.
Mm-hmm.
And when the family, the men, when they came to this country, they changed it to Levi. 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 And the new this is really something. The new generation that came up, they didn't like Levi. There was millions of Levi's in New York, so they all went back to Bundy.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Now, did you know your grandfather, Avram?
I was just about 4 years old, and I remember my mother used to cook for him. They had a duplex. It was divided, a duplex, and he was on one side of the duplex, and my mother used to cook his meals, and I remember taking the meals to him. That's as far as I can go.
Do you remember what he looked like?
Yeah, he had a beard. He was a nice-looking man. He was in his 90s when he passed away.
And had he died by the time you left Semyonich, or was he
still? Oh yeah, he died about 2 or 3 years before we left.
Mm-hmm. And do you know what he ever did for a living?
I really don't know. I think it was with the leather, and I think he had like a repair shop. And he had a man, fixing shoes and things like that, and he'd be buying the leather, He made a nice living, but it was nothing big.
And did your mother have brothers and sisters who were in Semyonich?
Yeah. Oh yeah, she had 2 sisters and 1 brother, and she had about 2 or 3 brothers in New York. They left. They left for New York earlier.
All right, well, let's talk about your parents and their brothers and sisters and what you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents?
Yeah. In terms of what you know, I want to hear about them, and I want to hear about their brothers and sisters.
Oh, we came here in 21, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, what can I tell you about him? My father was originally from, he had to live in New York, and he went to Kansas City, and he opened up a store, men's shop, little men's shop, secondhand. And he got sick with asthma, and the doctors told him that he had to leave Kansas City, and he has to come to a warm climate. And so they suggested San Antonio. So that's how we got to San Antonio.
Okay. But you're getting way ahead of me because I want to still stick with the family in Europe there.
Yeah.
His brothers were all in Kansas City, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, but your mother still had family in Europe?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the family. Let's just try to stick with the Europe part, and then we'll come to America.
Okay.
Who do you remember in her family?
Oh, I remember her sisters real well.
Do you know their names?
Yeah, one was I've forgotten their names. Isn't that terrible? I was little, you know. What was their name? Now, see, my sister would know all that better. You probably have that down. Did you ask her all that?
I have a lot of that from her.
Yeah, well, you had. She would know because
as a matter of fact, I have some of the names here.
Yeah, you have.
Sima Masha.
Yeah.
Hinda, and Suramalka.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And did they all stay in Europe?
Yeah, they stayed. Hitler
killed them?
Killed them. And I had one aunt, she had, I think, 12 children. That's Suramalka, whatever it is. She had 12 children. And I guess Hitler got them all. And then my mother had a sister in Warsaw also. They also got them, too. It's sad.
Very sad. Do you remember any of the married names of these sisters? What the family names might have been?
No.
And then your mother had some brothers also, right?
Yeah, one brother in Europe and two in New York.
And do you remember any of those names?
Moshe. One of them was, no, Schleimer. Schleimer. I don't know the other one. I never saw that other one. One brother came to see us when we arrived. You know, in the years in 1920, people didn't travel like they do now. So.
And with your mother's sisters in Europe, would they come to the house and would you do things together with them and your cousins, or did they live in different towns?
Yeah, we were friendly. We were very friendly. We'd get together, you know, I think. They didn't, you know, everybody worked so hard there and they worked late. And one of the sisters had a butcher shop. And she helped her husband in the butcher shop. And she's the one that had the 12 kids. The only time I'd get to see her is when we would go to see her in the butcher shop. And the other one was 13 years old when she got married. And she had a bunch of kids too. And she married a man, I don't know what they call him. That's never worked, but he was a student of the Torah. Yeah. And he would, that's all he did. Until finally he went to work, and I don't know what he did, but he finally went to work a little bit. And she was the sweetest. Now, we liked this aunt better than we did the other one.
Which one was that? Sima or Masha? Hinda?
No, Hinda was my mother.
Oh, right, Hinda, right. Sima or Masha?
Yeah.
Maybe there was one more. And why did you like her better?
Well, she was kinder, sweeter, friendlier. She was, the other one was so busy with her work and her 12 children, she didn't have much time. She was kind of selfish. I remember them saying that she was selfish.
Now, what did your mother do how did she
survive?
Take care of all of you while your father was here?
How did she survive? Well, she was an amazing woman. When my father came to this country, he used to send my mother every month, money, enough to survive, to live on. And instead of spending all that money, like enlarging her home or refurnishing her home or doing things, she would save it and she would give it out she would loan it to people. She'd loan it to some friends and they'd pay her an interest. They'd pay her.
Oh, so that's how she made money.
That's how and then the war broke out. When the war broke out, my father's money stopped coming. And the people that you loan out money to, they were so nice, but they couldn't pay her back. So however they did for their families, they did for us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They did things that worked, and they did for us.
But is that what pushed your mother to come to America at that time? That her...
Oh yeah, she had made up her mind already to come. Yeah. She didn't want no part of Europe anymore.
And how did the war affect your family? Do you remember?
Terrible. Which war?
World War I, I'm talking about.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was terrible. That's what I'm telling you.
Right, but you remember soldiers in the town, or were there soldiers?
Oh yeah, they'd be. I know one time they told us. See, our house was kind of located, kind of towards. It was a park. It was a beautiful park, I remember, and it was close there. And there was talk in town that they're going to fight in that area. That they were putting up things. They were getting ready, to fight back. And so we went to my aunt's house, the one we didn't especially like, but we went. And I remember laying under the bed, and I could still hear the bullets. I can still hear the bullets. It was horrible. It went on for about a night and a day, and then we came home. And when we came home, we found a lot of bullets in our yard and our steps there. There was a lot of fighting going on. And the Germans came in. They took over. See, between the German and Russian, our little town was always catching it. There was always problems there.
And how did things change in the town when the Germans took over? Did they make you start learning German in school then?
Yeah. I was going to like a day school, and I was learning how to speak. They were nice. They were very, at that time they were nice. They were pretty good. Just Jews. Nobody was ever good to Jews there. Nobody. They were all. I remember when I was a little girl, my mother had gone for a walk. She in that park with some people, some friends. So, being a little girl, I said, well, I'm going to go find her. And so I walked in there because it was right close, just like about a block from our house. And there was a bench. And one of the benches was a bunch of young boys. They were Polish. And they knocked me down for no reason. They were mean.
How did they know you were Jewish? You're a little kid. They don't know you.
I guess they knew it. I guess they could tell. I don't know. You can't tell here, but over there, I guess you could. They knocked me down, and I ran to my mother crying. I never have forgotten it. It was interesting. I have a brother. He's dead. I wished he was alive. But you should have talked to him. He knew so much. He was about 5 or 6 years older than I was. He's the one we went to Poland with about 10, 12 years ago. And that night I was telling you about when they were shooting, they wanted to get our town because it was on the borderline. And my mother couldn't find him. Max, where is Max? Couldn't find him. And she was going crazy. Finally, he comes home. You know what he was? There was a cemetery about just a little bit away from my house, right in the back of that synagogue I was telling you. And he was picking the bullets, picking up bullets. He came home with a bunch of bullets that were already used up, you know. He just, and later on, as he got older, you know, he made a pin out of it. He'd wear that pin with the bullet.
What was the Jewish population of Semyonich, do you know?
Quite a lot. Quite a lot.
And most of the people there had...
There were a few Jewish people that had money. There's a few, you know, but most of them were you know, by having money, it's just they were making a living, you know. I know there was a neighbor, I remember that very clearly. They were photographers, Jewish. They lived nicer than we did, and you know, they were more comfortable. We just existed. After my father left, you know, we just, so.
Describe your house to me a little bit. You said there was one bedroom, but what else was there?
There was one bedroom, and there was an oven in the middle of the room, and it was made out of brick, not brick, but tile, beautiful tile, and it was wide. You know, that oven was right in the middle, where it warmed every room. And then we had a nice living room, nice little living room, real pretty, because I had two older sisters. And they were having friends, and it was real pretty. And one of my sisters was she could sew. My mother had her go to some kind of a, you know, like, well, I wouldn't say a school, what would you call it? She learned how to sew.
Mm-hmm. Which sister was this now?
Nellie.
Nellie?
Uh-huh. And there was always pretty curtains. You know, our house would always look nice. And they had, and as you came in, I remember, as you came in, there was a little, about half the size of this, and there was a table and chairs, and that was our eating area, and the kitchen was to the back. It was nice. I mean, it was comfortable.
And there was an outhouse?
Outside? No, you had to go.
That's what
I don't know
outside.
where they went. I don't remember too much about it. I was glad I was little. And the bath, I think once a week they'd go to a bathhouse. There was no bathroom, no water. My mother had a big barrel. They had it made, you know, they'd make it for you. A big white, and then about once or twice a year you would buy. There were men that would take orders to bring you water. Would you believe it? He had a big barrel and on a wagon, you know, and he would go down. I don't know where he got the water, maybe in the river. Isn't that amazing? Where were the germs? Where were all those things?
And this was the water used for drinking and cooking?
Yeah, that's what you use for drinking and cooking.
And what about washing clothes? Would you?
Well, there was a river, and my poor sister, my mother, they would take the clothes to the river, and they'd wash the clothes at the river and bring it back. You see those things in little movies sometimes, and you don't really think it happened. It happened. And my sisters and my mother had it. Yeah, they'd wash it in the river. And then, yeah, that's it. Washed it in the river. I don't know where they dried it. The sun, I don't know. You know, it's amazing how you manage.
Absolutely.
Huh?
It is amazing.
It's amazing when you look back how you manage. And you know, when we came to this country, this is, you know, it's off the record really. When we came to this country, my father bought us a beautiful home in one of the nice neighborhoods. It just happened, there was a doctor here that moved, and he sold the house and all the furniture. We came, and he had nice little antiques, you know, and a piano for me, and I just want to tell you, my mother was lonely. There was nobody for her to talk to, nobody. my little brother and I, we went to school. After school, we went to Hebrew school. We didn't get home till dark. She would be so lonesome. She missed your Semyatit. Oh, why did I have to leave Semyatit? It's so lonely here. My father, they kept stores open until 10 o'clock at night. She missed Semyatit. And so I used to tell her, I was getting a little older, Rick. I said, what do you miss? You all didn't even have a toilet. Here you have a toilet and you have water. I tried to point out all the nice things. But she missed it. Have you come across anything like that where they come here and they miss it?
Sure. So, the house that you said I was going to ask you something. Oh, in terms of meals, did you all sit down together in the evening to eat when you were small, when your father was gone?
My father, I don't ever remember my father being home.
No, I say when he was gone.
Here?
No, I'm talking about in Semyatic. Would your mother make a meal for the family? Would you eat with the others?
She would cook, but I don't ever remember a family sitting down and eating.
Do you remember anything special she used to make?
Oh yeah, she was a good cook, and she baked. She baked challah.
Kind of?
She made, I don't remember, but she makes, like sweet and sour cabbage and all that stuff. And I remember baking. I remember that clearly. On a Thursday night, I think, she would bake, bread.
Would you have a special meal for Friday night for Shabbos?
Yeah, Friday night we'd have a special meal.
What do you remember that she would make?
Chicken and noodle soup.
Was that the only time a week that you probably had chicken?
That's the only time. And then during the war, when the war broke out, we didn't even have that.
Do you remember being hungry during the war?
No, I don't remember. I had a brother, my brother that passed away. You would enjoy him. He knew so much, more than any of us, because he was one of those busybody kids, just about 12 or 13 going on 20, and he would, it was when Germany took us over that time, and they put kids to work. They were nice. Germany didn't turn bad until Hitler took over. They'd give them little jobs, the government little jobs, and to deliver stuff. So my brother he worked on that, and one day he came home with a bunch of cheese. He stole it from the truck. And one day he came home with the eggs that he stole. He had so much nerve, guts. So this is my daughter, Barbara.
So you said your mother made chicken on Friday night?
Yeah, Friday night we had a pretty nice meal, but otherwise I don't know what we ate. But we ate. We all were good and strong and healthy.
And would she light candles and make a?
Oh yeah. We had a regular Shabbos. My mother was, she was not a fanatic, but she was religious. She wore a sheitel too, because my father, when they got married, my father wanted her to wear a sheitel. Mm-hmm. My father was more religious, I think, than my mother, because he had gone to the yeshiva. So, and it was so funny before they got married, he wanted her to shave his head. Did I ever tell you? He wanted her, and my mother had beautiful hair, and she said, "No way." She was a nice-looking lady. I'll have to show you. I have the pictures. So.
And in terms of, frequently people tell me that they got new shoes only at Rosh Hashanah or Pesach.
Oh yeah, you were lucky if you got them. I don't remember.
You don't remember?
That part I don't remember. I was so little, But we looked, like I've told you before, my sister was a dressmaker, and she didn't work out, but she was sewing and making things for us. Like I said, she made the drapes or the curtains.
Now, was everything made by hand, or did she have any kind of machine?
I guess they had a machine. They had a, I'm sure they had a machine. She used to hate to do so much because she was kind of a social. Uh, she was social. The second sister, Miss Lipscher, wasn't. She was a homebody. But this one here, she was a social. She was gorgeous, just a beautiful.
Well, let's talk about each of your sisters. Let's start with Nellie a little bit.
Nellie, she was a beautiful girl, just beautiful. I mean, beautiful. And she liked fellas, and fellas liked her. And she didn't care if they were Jewish or not.
Was that a problem for your mother?
But she well, she didn't. I don't know. They never. But she didn't go with just anybody. The guys she went with, they were in a very high upper. They were upper. She had a girlfriend who's her people had a. Yeah, I'll take a look. Her people had a studio photography, and they were in a high bracket, you know. They lived in a nice house, and that was her best friend. And every evening, they would get dressed and they'd go spazieren, walking. And they had a certain place they'd walk. It was close to the post office. Everybody would walk towards the post office to get their mail. And they would walk to the post office, and they were dressed up to kill, because my sister, you would, sew her clothes, and she she was beautiful. And she and that girl, they had a lot of fun.
Now, what happened when she brought down home non-Jewish guys? Would your mother be upset?
She didn't know. I think we kept it with her because it was nothing serious. Mm-hmm. Nothing serious. They'd meet and they'd have fun, and they never came home, or she never brought them home because it never got serious like that. Mm-hmm. But she didn't know. But my sister was always jealous because they wouldn't include her, because she would tattle on them, see? So they didn't, Ms. Lipscher, they wouldn't take her with them. And I was a little one, and I would hear everything that went on. And they didn't think I heard, but I used to hear. And I was kind of a nuisance, the seventh of eight. And but she had fun. But after when the war, I told you the war broke out, and I think we had another little war, and I think the Russian came in, and it got real bad. They were raping pretty girls, and boys they would take in and make them work. But my mother used to keep her sons in short pants and made them look young, so they'd look young. In fact, when my youngest brother came here, he was already 14, and he had short pants. That's another story. And so there was a lull there. There was about traveling. There was an agent, a Jewish guy, an agent, and he would tell people that he can get them to America. They'd have to have the money. And he had a pool, he knew how to handle it. And so my mother got a hold of him, and somehow or other she managed to get the fare for my sister and my older brother. And they left because she did not want, because my older brother was on the verge that the army would take him.
Now, which brother was this?
Ben, my brother Ben.
So he left with Nellie?
Nellie, huh?
By themselves?
Yeah, there was other people, that had the money. They had to have the money. And like I say, my mother was so wonderful to people when she was loaning them money, and they couldn't pay her, and how they helped her. So they helped her. They all helped her, and they all got together some money. They hadn't heard from my father in 3 years, so my father was not. He was sending money, but the money was overtaken.
You mean stolen before it even got to you?
It was stolen, yeah. We never got it for 3 years.
And your mother sent these two kids off to meet your father, and she hadn't heard from him in 3 years?
In 3 years. They went, and my sister says when they were while they were traveling, they were lucky they got there because the the mines, the oceans were mined already.
Right,
because while they were en route to this country was in war. Isn't that something? Yeah, you didn't know that?
I don't remember you saying that.
Did Nellie ever tell you any stories about what happened when they got here?
Yeah. She got to Kansas City.
Well, she must have gone to New York first, or Galveston.
No. Her tickets was direct to Kansas City. At that time, my father lived in Kansas City. She got to Kansas City. One of the uncles met her. They found out that the father is not in Kansas City anymore. He's in San Antonio. So she stayed in Kansas City a while and got a job. She met this guy, American, fell in love with him. So that was then.
But wait, she married that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever go to San Antonio to hook
Yeah,
up with
she came to visit after that, and she already had a baby.
you? So she never saw your father from the time?
Yeah, but she was older, so she knew my father.
Yeah, but I mean, she
knew him.
She went to Kansas City, met her husband.
Yeah.
Whose name was what?
Louis. She knew my father well because she must have been about 15 or 16, when my father left.
And then what happened to Ben?
Well, he came to San Antonio. He didn't like Kansas City. So he came to San Antonio and he lived here, with my father until we got here. We got here about 3 years later.
Did you ever hear how he hooked up with your dad?
No, we never heard anything. My mother never heard from he didn't know whether they ever got to New York or not. They never knew nothing. Imagine how a mother can go through that. Never knew, never heard.
Amazing.
I'm afraid to let him out in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
I know. It's just amazing. Did Nellie ever tell you anything about going from New York to Kansas City? I mean, she had to get off the boat and get on a train, right?
Well, that agent, he had that all fixed. Mm-hmm. He was a smart little Jew. Ooh, he was smart. I remember he was about this big. Every time I see Mr. Sam, at the...
Mr. Skolnick?
Yeah, I think of that agent because it's amazing that I remember little things like that. I remember what he looked like.
But she didn't speak English. She had to travel cross country.
Yeah. We didn't speak English either. When we came, 6 of us came here. We didn't speak. When I went to school, I didn't speak. But it's amazing how you... I started first grade.
But it's almost easier for a child at first grade than it is for your sisters.
But
who was it that sat on the curb with you, though, and taught you, worked with you?
Oh, that's right. That was in San Antonio.
Oh, I see.
Well, we're going to come to that.
When we got to school, I heard that bell was ringing, and I didn't know what that bell was. But everybody got up and everybody ran, so I ran too.
We'll come to all those stories. Tell me, and after your sister and brother left, let's talk about those couple years when you were still in Poland with your mother.
Yeah.
What?
Well, okay. After they left, my mother was really in bad shape. Thank God I was little.
You mean emotionally in bad shape? Or?
Not emotionally, never emotionally. Financially, didn't have any money, nothing. So somebody that heard something, they make soap. So they heard, that's how you talk about how you can raise a little money to live on. So they went into the soap business. We had a pantry, a dark pantry. See, it was against the law. If they catch you doing it, you'd be dead. And so all you needed to make that soap is some kind of, I think they would buy that some grease, grease. I don't know how they got it or where they got it, but I remember that.
Animal fat sometimes.
Yeah, some animal fat. That's what it did. And my mother had a form made. You voted, you had a form made, and I can see it now. I wish we could have brought it home. It was bright, and my sister would she'd go to a little country town and walk, little, and she would sell it to the people because you couldn't find soap. But that was not a kosher. That was not a kosher thing. What I mean, you get caught in that, they'd put you in jail. But they were just lucky that she never got.
Did she make enough money from that to sort of
just
buy?
Didn't need very much.
Right.
You didn't need just a little food. That's all. That's all we needed. But then.
You forgot you had all of this.
Yeah. By then, all we needed. Oh, thank you. By then, all we needed was just food. That's all. Clothes, just try to make out with what you had, and it was just something. And my mother we never heard from those kids until one day we heard from my father. And my father was sending us money every month like he did. We never got a penny of it. So then, of course, after we heard, we started working on, coming here. And he sent us the paperwork, all the paperwork and everything.
All right, I still want to ask you a few more questions about life in Europe. This story that Barbara just mentioned about the pogroms, you don't remember that at all?
I don't remember that at all, but I think she really has that mixed up. I was telling her about my grandfather. He was a twin.
Now, this was Avram or this
Avram, he had a twin.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were about 2 years old or a year old or something, they were outside playing. And the Kazakhs, you know that, they rode by, see, on a horse. See, that's where she got it. But it wasn't. It was that baby, that he grabbed that baby. And they just drove away on a horse. I think that's where she got it.
They took the baby, or they just knocked him off?
They took the baby.
And they never saw him again?
They never saw him again. And while they were taking the baby, they came out hollering and screaming, and the baby was crying, and he had a little yarmulke on his head, and he dropped the little yarmulke. And I think that's where she got it.
So this was when your grandfather was a small child?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's amazing.
See, we didn't know all that. It happened when they were very young. Could be maybe before my mother was even born, because he had a bunch of kids too. And so we were wondering about where all the twins come in our family, because both of my brothers have twins,
right.
And now Jack has twins. And so one uncle was still alive, from my mother's brother, and he's the one that told us about it. So you mean you never heard about it? No, we never heard about it.
But I'm just confused for one thing. Was it your grandfather's twin, or was it his children?
The grandfather's twin.
So when your grandfather was a little boy, this happened. Mm. That's an incredible story.
And my grandfather's probably been dead. God, I don't know, maybe 70 or 80 years old, 80 that he's dead, and he was 92 and 93 when he died. So that's way back, almost 200 years altogether.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where I think she got that confused with my cousin,
Now, you went to school, and was it like a gymnasium that you went to when you were in Semyatish?
No, they had a shul, they call it, school, where they taught Hebrew.
Oh, so it was like a Jewish
school. But then you had to have whatever government there, you had to have that
language.
That language. And so that's what happened. And I must have started when I was 4. And it's all day. But at 4, you're big. You're not little. You're grown. You're fully grown.
And when you were doing that, your mother would be home taking care of the house, making soap, doing
sure.
whatever she needed to do.
Yeah. That's all. She was, what you call a housewife. I don't know, potatoes. I remember my mother was always peeling potatoes. That was our main food.
Did you have a small garden, or would she buy?
No, they didn't have gardens because they didn't have that much space, just a little space in the front, because it was in the city, they didn't have a lot of land. But I tell you, the house my mother lived in had a cellar, a nice cellar. In September, I think, or I don't, I don't know what the month that when they start harvesting. Isn't that about September?
Probably to put things away for the winter,
Yeah.
maybe.
Uh, the people around us, they had farms, the Goyim, had farms, and they'd sell the potatoes and they'd sell whatever but potatoes seemed to be the big item. And they'd say, now you can buy a portion, of whatever potatoes is there, and they'd sell it to you. And she would buy it, and then they'd deliver it to you. And so she would get enough potatoes to last us for the whole winter. And they'd come in and they'd put it in the cellar. And so we always had potatoes. We always had food, potatoes.
And would you eat them just as a whole potato, or would she make
Oh,
different
she'd make
dishes?
something, potato latkes, or potato soup, or she always had. She was a good mother and a good, nice cook. She tried.
What do you remember about the winters? It must have been very cold.
It was very cold.
Did you have warm clothing?
Yeah, I think so. Well, like I say, my sister was a dressmaker, and so she was always, we always looked nice.
Would your house be warm from this stove that you said was in the center?
Yeah, that would be the bricks. There's a beautiful white. I remember it like yesterday. There's a beautiful light. Blocks, and then it was finished on top. Real fancy, and they would paint it with different colors to make it look real pretty. Like a crown.
Uh-huh. And when it got dark very early
They had
during
lamps.
the winter, with kerosene lamps or
Kerosene lamps. I think just before we left, they were bringing in the lights. Just before as we were leaving, they were beginning to get a little modernized.
Now, what about? Yeah, go ahead.
My aunt lived in Warsaw. Now they were already very modern. They had everything. They had water, they had lights, they had everything. But we lived in a little village,
And would you ever go visit your aunt?
Yeah, I think before we left to America.
Now, which aunt was this that was there?
Warsaw.
But this is the one you didn't like with the 12 children, or?
Huh?
Which aunt was it? Was it Sura Malka that was in Warsaw, or?
No.
Sima, Masha?
Sima, Masha. How many aunts do you have?
Well, what I had from your sister's tape is that there were 4 girls and 4 boys, but I only have one boy's name, and then...
Nesha.
Nesha?
No, her name was Nesha, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she married a more, her husband was from a big city, from Warsaw. More, I don't know, up on things. Our little town was really a little town.
Mm-hmm.
But my family, not that I want to brag on them, but they were modern. They were real modern.
And when you went to Warsaw, how would you go?
We went in a wagon, one
The
of
horse and buggy?
yeah, in a buggy. You'd sit on the chairs, Yeah, that's the only transportation they had.
And how long would it take?
I think it took about, I don't know. I don't know. It was so much fun. I didn't mind it, I imagine about 3, 4 hours or more. In a car, it took about, when we were in Warsaw, and we went to the little town that we came from. It took about an hour and a half where we went.
And in the summers when you didn't go to school, what kind of things would you do?
Just played outside. We just played. Played, just like kids do.
Mm-hmm.
We'd play we'd play checkers and all that stuff,
Do you remember any of your friends that you were particularly fond of?
No, I said my brother and I were about almost like twins.
Which brother was this now?
Sam. He's the one that has Penners. We were like twins. In fact, some of the people here in San Antonio, they thought we were twins. Because we'd go to school together, then we went to Hebrew school together, and then, we were real close.
Do you remember any of the kids ever having a serious childhood illness?
No, but my mother, she lost 2 children. That was before my time.
What do you know about that?
Well, one of them was from an injection. I used to hear Mama say.
What kind of injection?
They gave her an injection of some kind. I don't know. And it was just bad. No. When you
Vaccinate?
vaccinate from vaccination, she broke out in blisters and everything and died.
And how old was she when she died?
Oh yeah, Mama said she was about 2 years old almost. And then
do you know what her name was?
A little boy died. No, that was so far back. I don't even. My sister wasn't even born then. They were the early children first.
And what did the little boy die from?
Also from something like that. Because my mother always used to say, "Isn't it a shame that my kids had to die because they were ignorant, just ignorance."
But it sounds like she was doing the right thing, giving them a...
Yeah, she was doing the right thing, but the doctors weren't up on it.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't up on it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what to do. I don't know.
Hmm.
The medicine wasn't up on it. The medical thing, it was just bad.
Hmm.
It was lucky you came out, in those years, in those days. My mother had 8 kids.
Who are we missing? We have Nellie, Leah, you, Ben,
You're
Max.
missing. No, that's it.
Sam,
Yeah, that's
and
it.
the 2 who died. Is that it?
Yeah. I don't think Sam remembers anything.
All right, I'm going to come to a discussion about each of your brothers and sisters, but do you remember if there was any specific thing that happened that your mother said, okay, now we're going to America, or was it just a question of getting enough money together and waiting till she could go?
No, we had to wait until we heard from my father. They said that and I remember they talking about the rumor was that America is out of war. But he didn't even know that America, I don't think I knew America was in, I didn't know that. I guess my mother probably knew. And then this agent came along, this agent, that was his business. And he contacted my mother, he knew the people, the women who were, there were quite a few women, that were left there without husbands. And their husbands were in Europe. I mean, in America. Because that was the thing. That's what most of them did. They didn't have enough money for both of them to go, so the husband usually would go and then bring them. And my mother had been, well, she didn't want to leave Europe. She liked Europe. She liked it. And my father wanted to bring her right away when everything was, no war. Everything was open, and she didn't want to. She didn't. They told her it was a goyish country. It's a goyish streets and goyish this and goyish that. She found out that there's more Jewish she found out later that it's the same all over.
Then your family kept kosher in Europe?
Oh yeah, I kept kosher here too, as long as my mother was alive. And then I cut it out. You keep kosher? You do? Well, it's not hard to keep kosher, in where you are. It was murder here. We have one butcher.
And did you remember ever having to take your Friday night chicken to the shochet with your mother, or was that?
Did I remember? I used to take it and I used to have to flick I'm the feather picker. Oh, I hated that. That I'll never forget.
Were the chickens running around your yard and then you'd take it, or did you have to go
We
someplace
used to go buy the chickens at first. We didn't have a yard. Like I said, we didn't have a yard from to flip. But we used to buy the chicken and then take them to the shechet.
Talk about that a little bit, because if your grandchildren and great-grandchildren listen to this, they're not going to have any idea of what was involved.
Yeah.
You would take it and you'd stand there while they killed it, or what?
Yeah, sure. They'd, and then throw it until they, stop breathing. And then you take it home, and then you see it here, and you had to pull the feathers out. And the feathers, I don't know, over here, you don't have to do that. But I just used to do that over here too. They have like little black fleece. They'd be all over my arm. And even here, my mother would not buy a chicken that's already, she always had to have a fresh chicken. And I would pick it.
It's amazing you didn't become vegetarian yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But would the shochet clean out the insides, or you had to do that also?
Oh, no, my mother would do that. She would clean it out. All I did was just take the feathers out.
How long would that take?
I don't know. Depends on how tough the chicken, the feathers were. I was pretty fast. I'd pick it fast.
And would you save the feathers to make a quilt or anything?
No, just throw it out. No, we weren't into that. No, we weren't into anything like that. In a way, we were a little modern. We were a little bit more modern than some Jewish families were. But we were kosher. I know. When I got married, my father died after I was married. I was married about 3 months, and I was pregnant already. And then my mother got real sick. And I lived in a little country town in Gonzales. I'm itching with just talking about picking those feathers. And I came. My brother says, "Oh, come here. There's a little town, blah blah blah." Anyway, that's a long story. So we moved here, and my mother had a big house, so we moved into that house. And it was Depression when I got married. So we moved into that house, and so of course it was kosher, very kosher. But my mother had an idea. I didn't have a love for that kosher business. She'd watch me like a hog. I bet our yard had more knives and things sticking in it.
That's funny.
And so I kept kosher, and boy, she was like a mashgiach, you know, that man, she'd show up just when I mean, I never mixed anything, but it, you know, it just seems so silly. It seems silly that when you can put it in hot water, now what's the difference whether you wash them in hot water or you would put a stone in some water and then drop it in? You know, it doesn't make sense really. But I did it. When she passed away, I called the Rutfish Shalom, you know, and I told him that I have a lot of dishes and pots and pans and everything. And this was Passover, you know, because we used to have a lot of people over for Passover. And I says, if you can use it, you know, and they had just gotten a new man in there, a sheikh, I guess, or a reverend or somebody. And they came over with and I tell you, I almost filled up a half a truck with dishes. Because I said, I just didn't have the heart to use it, you know. And so I gave it to them all.
What do you remember about Passover in Semyadich? I mean, would you bake your own matzah?
I don't remember too much. I don't think we had too much. We had matzah. What I remember about it is two or three families would get together, and they'd bake matzah, and then they'd divide. And it was a whole days or maybe 2 days, and you had to go somewheres that had that kind of oven, because nobody had an oven. So I think it might have been a bakery that had a big bakery oven. And I remember it was a lot of fun, you know. Everybody, you know, was baking the matzah. That's the only thing I remember.
What about your mother cleaning the house for Passover?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What do you remember about that?
We even did that here. Oh, my God, you would think it was never clean. Oh, my God, I hated it. And then to go sell them chametz, oh, I hated it. I hated it. But I did it for my mother. We lived together for 15 years. I did it for 15 years, and after she passed away, I said, well, that's it. And my husband, he was really a good guy because he was raised in a little town like a goy, you know. And so the mother was born in the little town here, and he was born there. The grandma was born there. They were like goyim, but they were Jews, you know. And so, but he went along, and he hated that meat with a passion. But he went along. He didn't give me too much trouble. You know, I appreciate that in him.
So at some point around 1919 or so, your mother decided she was going to pack up? Is that about right? You said you were about 7 or 8?
Huh?
You said you were about 7 or 8 when you finally came to America?
I was, no, about 6 or 7.
6 or 7. So after the war ended?
Yeah.
And do you remember packing up and getting ready to leave?
Yeah, I remember there's a lot of excitement. See, but I wasn't involved in anything, you know. They wanted me out of the way. I was just a nuisance to them.
But did your mother sell the contents of the house? Or do you remember any of that?
Yeah, I know the house. Oh yeah, that helped, you know, that helped us some money. We had it's like one half was ours, and then the other half was, I don't know, I think the brother got the other half of the house. I don't think she sold that. And the contents too, I guess, must have gone with the house. I really don't remember. I know that she packed. My mother liked a lot of copper. We had a lot of copper. I remember that, before a holiday, my God, the copper had to be polished until they, you know, it was beautiful. She kept a very nice house, very nice and clean, unusual for a lot. And my mother was a balabusta, you know what I mean? And I remember packing it all. I remember they were packing it. And when we got to take to this country, and when we got to a Posen, I think that was the Germany, German border. When we got to the border, they kept it all. They wouldn't let us take it.
Well, I was going to ask you, did she limit what you could bring?
Oh, yeah, but we didn't have that much to pack. We didn't have. But she probably either gave it away or sold it or something. But she did want to bring that copper, and they took it all away.
Hmm.
We had some beautiful silver candlesticks. I don't see how they overlooked it. But I have them here. They're gorgeous. I gave them to my daughter.
Now, are these the same candlesticks that your sister Leah talked about, that she said that was the only thing that they didn't take away?
Yeah.
And did you have a special doll or anything that you were able to bring with you that when you said you were so small?
We brought the feather beds, but we finally had to, I think I gave it away. Gave them away because my husband's allergic, and they tell you it's first thing you can, my son, Jack, was a little bit allergic, so I just got rid of them all.
And when you packed up to go, do you remember being a little sad or scared or
No, I was excited.
And you went by horse and buggy to Posen?
Yeah, not by her. Yeah, no, we went to Warsaw.
Uh-huh.
To Warsaw, and in Warsaw we took the train, and the train took us to Rotterdam. You've heard of Rotterdam? That's where we got the ship.
So it was you and Leah and Max and Sam.
That's all. Mm-hmm.
And was it you remember commotion and difficulty sort of moving all these children and everything around, or
no, because they were gone. It was just Sam and I, and we didn't give him any trouble. He was a good little boy. I guess I was too. I didn't give him any trouble. In fact, when we got to Rotterdam, there was a problem with my brother. My brother was already...
Which brother this now?
Sam. Max. He was a little too late. He was a little, I don't know. It was a problem with his age or something. So they tried to bring him here, and they had to work it out. So my brother, my sister and my mother had to go there. So we had to stay in Rotterdam for about a week before we could they let us leave.
And where'd you stay when you were there? Do you remember?
It was like an auditorium. They had a lot of beds, I remember. And I know my mother told us, now we're going to be going. We've got to take care of some business. And so he and I, Sam, we were there all day, but there were a lot of people, a lot of Jewish people. So it was just Jewish people.
And what did you do about food staying in there? I mean, were they...
I think they served you some food. They served you. I remember not liking it. But they served you food.
So she got this problem straightened out?
She had it straightened out.
And then you got on a ship?
Yeah, because see, the agent was still there. The agent was there until we got on the ship.
This little short Jewish guy?
Yeah, of course he was paid well, And my father was, very generous. He was anxious for us to get here.
And do you remember the name of the ship?
Not anymore.
And what do you remember about crossing the ocean?
Well, I liked it. My mother was sick most of the time. We were in at the very bottom. My father paid for second class, which was a nice, They did not give anybody second class. It was right after the war, and they used it all for the personnel, Army.
You mean to bring them back from
Europe? Yeah. So we were way down in the very bottom, and it was one bed after another. It was like a jail, and it was smelly, and it was ugly. So we used to lay on the deck most of the time. We'd be on the deck, and God bless, may he rest in peace, my brother. He was such a go-getter, and he had such a way about him. He would sneak up to the second floor, into the better floor. And I don't know, I guess he'd bring us some food from there. I don't know how he did it, but he'd bring us some fruit. They didn't give us any fruit there. We were like prisoners. They treated us so bad. And but we were on the deck. It was summertime, thank God, that it was summertime, and we were on the deck a lot. The food, and then they had so many people, Jewish people. I hate to talk about them, but they were so bad. When they put food on the table, they would just grab. Ugly. They were real ugly. Just like sometimes you see it in a movie, but it really happens.
And how long did the crossing take?
Maybe about 2 weeks. A long time.
And where did you land?
Ellis Island.
And what do you remember?
Yeah, I
Your first
remember that.
impressions of-
Oh, yeah, I remember they showed us the Statue of Liberty, and then there was a rumor. When we got, there was a rumor that they were holding back a lot of people. Oh yeah, we met on the ship. My mother and my sister, and they got acquainted with a young man, and his wife was there with them, but she couldn't leave. She didn't have enough money, so he went by himself, and he was a journalist, Jewish, real intelligent, and he was going to New York, and they got real friendly with him, and he was like our part of the family. He looked out for us, and just before he was landing, he couldn't get in touch with the people that were supposed to meet him. Some family couldn't touch, and he told us, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get in touch with the people that are supposed to meet him, because otherwise they won't let you off. Unless you can show $25. If you can show that you have $25, they won't let you off if there's no one to meet you." And so my mother says, "Look, don't worry, I have $25. I'll give you the $25. And it didn't take, after we got to this country, it didn't take 2-3 months when he mailed us the $25. I'm so sorry that they didn't keep up a correspondence with him. Such a refined, wonderful young man.
You remember his name?
No, I wished I did. I was little. See that my
Well, your sister remembered.
Yeah.
She said his name was Mr. Shotsky. I think that's what it was.
Shotsky? That's right, you remember.
Well, I was looking at her interview yesterday.
Yeah? Yeah. Did she tell you he was a wonderful man and what all he did? And so the funny thing, my mother, that son of, he wore short pants. He was almost 14 years old, 13. Big for 13 going on 20. And so the men had their own quarters, separate quarters on another section of the boat. And but if you were just 13, you could stay with your family. So he stayed with us. See, a couple days. All of a sudden, they came to us and they said, "I'm sorry, your son cannot stay here anymore. We have too many complaints. He's got roaming eyes, and the girls are complaining. They don't want him. He's got to go to the men's section." And so my mother got sick. She said, "It's going to turn him loose." So this man, this Shotsky, he said, "Look, Madam Penner, Madame Penner," he's called her. He said, I'll take care of him. I'll have him right by my side. I'm not going to let him out of my sight. And don't worry." And he did. He was just wonderful. He was like a guide to us.
Hmm.
And so we let him have that Mama let him have $25 and returned it, you know. And the girls, they corresponded with him for some time. I don't know whatever happened. I don't know if his wife ever got to come, a lovely looking young woman. I don't know if she ever got to make it because Hitler, it wasn't too far behind us. So anyway, so that's what, isn't that funny? How sure, I knew she would remember. She was about 16, I imagine, or 17.
So you landed at Ellis Island and you saw...
Okay, this is what I remember. I had black hair, jet black, jet. They'd always touched my hair to see if it's, it's for real. And we got there, we all got cleaned up, and my sister put a bow in my hair, and so when we got to Ellis Island, there was a lot of problems with people that they would not let went out, that they had to stay there until they got rid of whatever they had wrong. And so we were so worried, and here we didn't bathe all that time we were 3-4 days on the, 3 weeks. I don't remember bathing. I don't remember. Where did you bathe? I don't know. And so...
Where did you go to the bathroom on the ship? Did they have...
I don't remember. Well, see, I don't remember that, but I'm sure we did. And so we...
And so you got cleaned up and your sister put a bow in your hair.
Oh, yeah, and my mother was so worried. I said, I hope it don't happen to us. I don't know. Anyway, so I happened to be in line first, I happened to be in line, and that guy just went crazy about my hair, and he touched my hair. And I was kind of a pretty kid, and white face, real clear white face. And he said, oh, you're such a pretty little girl. Is that your mama and all that? And I said, yeah. Okay, go on. So I saved them, although they were all in good shape,
Now, what language was he speaking to you?
Well, we were in this country.
Yeah, but you didn't know English when you came, did you? I mean, was he speaking?
No, he probably talked Abyssal Yiddish. Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't understand.
Now, did your father meet you in New York?
No.
Who was here to meet you?
No, nobody. We didn't need anybody to meet us. We had our papers were direct from Ellis Island to the home, and then go home.
What's the first thing you remember seeing other than the Statue of Liberty when you got off?
Ellis Island, they take you, through like, I don't know, you just walk, it's like a walk, Have you ever been there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. They've just fixed it up.
They fixed it up now, huh?
It's really a wonderful trip.
I would love to see it. Well, it's open to visitors now.
Yeah, but it really looks like, I'm sure it looks exactly the way it looks when you came through. They didn't modernize it.
Yeah, it had a lot of benches there where people sit around, and I remember that.
Some of the people that I've talked to told me that they saw the first black person when they got off the ship.
Oh, really? No, I never. I think I saw him. I don't remember that. I just don't remember that. There's so much to remember,
right. The other thing they said is that they saw bananas. They had never seen bananas.
Oh, well, I can tell you a story about that. When we stopped, when you're on the train, they make so many stops, a lot of stops. And so, of course, we were all cowards. I was little, and my little brother was little, and Mama, and she was sitting, and my sister, I don't know. My brother, he would get off. We wouldn't get off. We were scared to get off. I was afraid that the train might go on without us. But he'd get off, and had no fear. He got off, and he said, Mom, give me some money. I'll buy us something. Mama would give me some money. $1 didn't mean nothing to my mother because she couldn't do nothing with it. And so she gave him some money. He comes back with sandwiches. He said, "Oh, I brought you all." They didn't serve food. You know, you starved to death if you didn't get off and buy something. And so he comes back with sandwiches, and we're so excited. We open it up, it's ham. God. Of course, we didn't eat it. And another time he did the same thing. He got off the train again, and he comes up with a big watermelon. And a watermelon. And we were so excited. But how are you going to eat a watermelon on the train? You have no napkins, you have nothing. I don't know, we ate it, but I don't know how we did. And I bet people looked at us like we were really some trash. We ate that watermelon. We ate every bit of it. I imagine how we just slouched, we ate it.
So, even going from the boat to the train station, do you remember what your thoughts were about being in America, or just?
Oh, I was real excited, of course. We were real excited. But the most exciting thing was when we got here. And then my father and my brother met us.
Well, before you do that, just tell me a little bit more about the trip across country, other than getting the food. How long did it take you to get here?
About 2 weeks, I think. 2 weeks.
And you slept sitting up on the train?
Oh, you mean on the train?
Yeah, when you came from Ellis Island.
Oh, no, it took about 3 days, I think. About three or 4 days, maybe.
And were you able to communicate with any of the other passengers?
No, no, there wasn't any other Jews, because they didn't work. The Jewish people never heard of Texas. We were the only ones going to Texas.
So you didn't go to Kansas City, you came straight here?
No, we came straight to Texas, San Antonio.
And what happened when you saw your father for the first time after all that?
I don't know, I couldn't call him father. I just couldn't call him Papa for a long time. I just couldn't. I would talk to him and all that, but I don't know, I just couldn't. It was a funny feeling. It was just a funny feeling. But
did he recognize all of you right away?
Well, I don't know if he recognized me or Sam, I don't know. But I knew he always used to brag about me because I was such a good kid, you know. And then Sam, of course, Sam was even younger, a year younger, so. But getting over here, my brother was already here. So it felt at home because my brother was here. My brother, he was here 3 years before we came here.
And had he learned English by that time?
Oh, yeah, he learned English, and he was, already knew the answers. And then when they took us to our house, it was something else. It was a beautiful
Describe it for me.
2-story house. This this house was for sale, and with the furniture and everything in it. And my father bought it. And we came there and we got in the house. It was amazing. It was just so nice. Bedrooms for everybody, and even a piano. He bought a piano. The man had a piano, so he bought the piano. He bought everything in it. And I remember in the dining room there was shelves on top, and it had beautiful little hand-painted plates. I don't know whatever happened to them. I mean, it didn't mean anything, hand-painted. It must have been some nice stuff.
Mm-hmm. And what was the
There's
address?
only one thing I salvaged. Some, one thing we still have is a coffee, is a Chinese. I'll show it to you. I have it. It had a lot more cups and saucers, but I only have about 3 or 4 cups and saucers in a pitcher, Chinese. But there was a lot of nice pieces. Now I would appreciate it, but I didn't then.
Do you have any idea what your father paid for this house with its contents?
Not too much, a couple $1,000, I think.
So he had been successful while he was working here and able to save some money.
Yeah, he had the store. He already had the store, and he was a hard worker. He just never knew when to stop. He wanted his family here. He was a good man.
Penner's already existed then, or he was...
No, that's Penner's. He started Penner's.
He didn't start with as a peddler, or that was before?
He never did. He never was a peddler. He started with a little store. No, when he came here, he was already up on it. When he came in Kansas City, his brothers had stores. They had little stores. They called secondhand. They would, if somebody died in your family, you know, and if a man died, they would advertise, you know, that they have some clothes they want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go there. He would go there and buy. And then he'd bring it. Then he had a man in the store that would tailor, you know, that would go over it and press it and clean it, maybe clean it if it needed cleaning. And he'd sell it. And he'd pay like 50 cents for, he'd pay like 50 cents for a dollar a suit, and he'd sell it for 3 or 4, you know, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So you got to your new house and saw you had your toilet and your running water and...
Yeah, everything. Oh, yeah, it was great. And the stove where you turn on the
gas.
Yeah, that was Sunday, and on Monday right away my father took us to school, you know, to register us to the school, and they were they treated us so nice, you know, they were really kind, the teachers.
But you had no English?
No, not a word, nothing.
How long did it take you to feel comfortable?
A month or 2. After the first couple, no, I tell you, it made it bad because there were no Jewish kids there. He took us into this nice new neighborhood. There were no Jewish people around there, no Jewish people. So we just lived there about 8 or 9 months, that's all. And my mother just couldn't stand it. She just couldn't stand it because she was home alone all day long. And we didn't get home until about 6 or 7, and my father didn't get home until 9 or 10.
Mm.
And then, in the meantime, she was going into menopause. And she went through so much that she was sick. She got sick. And she couldn't walk the steps. You know, she was... So my father we moved out. We moved out and we went to a Jewish area, Jewish neighborhood.
And where was that?
Off of Commerce Street. You know, off of Commerce. All the Jews lived there. I think it was Omaha Street. And my sister Nellie came, and then she took my sister Leah back to Kansas City. She said, as long as Leah was here, and you know, it was all right. She had company, and then she was already of marriageable age. She was about 18, and so they figured, well, she'll never. We didn't even know there was any Jews here, and so she'll never find a husband here. So she took her to home with her, and she wasn't happy there. She came back here and she met her husband.
So you started school in the 1st grade? Is that what it was?
First. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I stayed in the 1st grade, and then in the 2nd grade, and then they skipped me to the 4th. And I stayed in the 4th grade about a year, and then they skipped me again. Because, see, I had a lot of it. When you go 2 or 3 hours, 8 hours a day in school, you learn. Mm-hmm. You don't have any, in Europe, you don't have any recesses. No recess. You know, I don't know what you do. What the hell do you do there? I don't know. I don't know how they handle it. So, I made I made, let me see, 7th grade. I made 7 grades in about 3 years.
All right. I want to talk about your life here in San Antonio a little bit. Let me just change this tape. Hold on one second. All right. We just started this new tape, and I'd like to talk about life here in San Antonio in the early years.
Okay.
So you said your father, you moved to the new neighborhood because there were more Jewish people there.
Yeah.
And do you remember the address of that house?
Omaha Street. I know it's on Omaha.
Right. Okay.
It's in the 100 block, I know, because it's the first street, it's 100 block.
Okay. And so you had Sam and Max, and Ben was living with you too? Ben?
Yeah.
And
let me see. Ben lived with us? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he lived with us. Yeah.
And Nellie was in Kansas City married.
Yeah, Nellie was in Kansas City, and then Leah, she stayed in Kansas City for about a year, and then she came back.
Mm-hmm. And your father was running Penner's.
Yeah.
And your mother was keeping the house?
Yeah, yeah.
And did any of you children work in the store at that point?
The boy, yeah, Ben did.
Mm-hmm.
Ben did. And let's see about Sam, Max too. Yeah, they both worked.
And you were going through grade school and whatever?
Yeah.
And Leah was already out of school?
Who?
Your sister, Leah.
She never went to school here. I think she went at night school for. They had a school. It's a Jewish, like they have. They didn't have it then. They have like the Jewish center, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had night classes for people like us that
to learn English and
to learn how to speak English, because she knew how to write and all, because all she had to do was just pick up the language, and she was okay.
And did your mother learn English?
Never, just a little, just enough. She learned enough where she could take the bus and go to Josca's, because that was the store.
Right.
The bus would take her right there, and she knew how to order like coffee and pie or something like that. That was it.
Now, about how old was your mother when she came?
Well, she hadn't gone into menopause until we got here.
So maybe mid-40s?
Early 50s.
Early 50s.
Very early.
And you mentioned that before. I was going to ask you, did your mother ever explain the facts of life to you when you were growing up?
No.
Nothing?
Mm-mm. So I didn't know anything about it until there was we had a neighbor that had a niece, and she was already married. And I had a couple of little friends over that. It was a Jewish holiday. And we always seemed to, we lived near a synagogue, 3-4 blocks. And so we were all, congregating at my house. And then this neighbor of mine, her niece came over. She was married already, maybe 10 years older than we are, maybe more. And I don't know, she was talking, and she was a talker, never stopped talking. And I don't know how we got on the subject. I don't know how we got on the subject. Oh, she asked us if we were about 13, I guess, by then, if we go out with boys, and no, we didn't go out with boys yet. I don't know, she asked different questions, She was a good talker and a lot of fun. And she said, well, if you all start going with boys, just be careful. Don't let them get to you. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, you know what? He says, that thing you have between your legs? It's really, I'm even embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to even repeat it. She said, I never will forget it. She don't put that in there.
All right. I think your children are old enough to hear it. Yeah.
She said, that thing you have between your legs? It's not just to make pee-pee out of. Then we all went just wild. And we must have been 13 at least, And she began, that she told us everything. But I never will forget it. You know, it's not just me.
Well, what happened when you got your period? Did you know what was happening to you?
Didn't know. It happened at school.
And what did you do?
I happened to have a white skirt, and I got some blood on it, too. I don't know, I got home, and luckily, I don't know, nobody saw it. And when it got on my skirt, I don't know. And I got in the house real quick, and I went upstairs and right in the bathroom. Yeah. And I don't know, I didn't know what to wear. I remember my sister saying something about schmutzes, you know. And so I don't know. And I never did tell my mother that I had it.
You're kidding.
Never. Mm-mm. Never told her. Maybe it might have been a couple times that I had it. And here she was worried to death about me because why I hadn't had it. But she never mentioned anything. And finally she found out, you know, told her. I told my sister. And my mother was so mad at me because I didn't tell her because she was getting worried why I don't have my period. That's how it happened. Never said a word.
It's so amazing when you think about it now because...
Yeah. Never. And that woman enlightened us. That was the crudest way to put it I ever heard. Yeah, I never will forget. You know how something is that sometimes you hear something? All of us, we were just really. We were in shock.
I'm sure. So, let's just talk about the sort of day-to-day existence in those early years, what San Antonio was like. And,
yeah, it was real nice. We enjoyed it. It was very nice.
And did people, when they knew, the non-Jews found out you were Jewish, was there any problems with that?
No, never had problems. In fact, there was when we lived in our house, in our two-story house, we had a neighbor, a doctor, and she had a little girl my age, and she tried to teach me how to, talk, speak, and she had a bicycle, and she rode that bicycle so well, and she was trying to teach me how to ride a bicycle, and I remember that, and they were very friendly, They couldn't talk to us, We were beginning to understand a little bit, but my mother never did. Like I say, just enough to get by.
And you had friends that you would go around with when you...
Oh yeah, always had friends. Had no problems. I had friends. In fact, there was neighbors. When we moved with the Jewish people, we used to play a lot in the streets, We had those steels, stalls or whatever they call it, where you can walk on, it makes you look real tall.
Huh?
Stills, We used to walk on those stills, we had a lot of fun. And then this friend of mine, and we're still friends, Rose, she was Rose Greenfield. She's Rose Klein now. And we get together once a week. And there was a light on our corner, so hot in the house, so we'd all sit on the curb, in summer evenings. And she would teach me, she would help me read, I was in this country about a year already by then, and she would, we would read, and she would listen to me read, and she would, yes, it was, real nice. And we're still friends. And she reminds me, hey, don't act so smart. I remember when I taught you how to read.
That's cute. And your family, the circumstances, your father was making a decent living at the business?
Yeah, making a decent living. Yeah, he was. He made a nice living. And then we had a flood, of course, we had a flood.
That was about 1920, I think.
Yeah, and our, the store really just, they had by then we were no more secondhand, everything was new. But then the flood came in and just washed everything out, and again we went into second hand because they brought everything home and they put it all over the yard to dry, and oh, it was pathetic. I remember my father had like a gold. It wasn't really gold; it was imitation because the location where he was, he couldn't sell gold, like chains and little, whatever bracelets and things. That was all. They brought it home and they tried to dry it, but it didn't do any good. And then
where was the store located in those
on
days?
Commerce Street.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. They're still there. They're still right there. Except they moved across the street and the ground is a little bit higher. It's right in the river. Their wall was the same, this right in the river. And now they have, they build high, they didn't have any. Now they have as high as this, the walls.
And do you remember your father being just devastated by this flood, or was it?
Oh, they were all of them. They were so worried. But when you're little, you don't. It doesn't bother you. It bothers a little bit. I know my brother and I woke up one morning, and nobody was home. Nobody was home. Couldn't imagine where could everybody be. And then we found out that they were all by the store. It was a flood. And then they started bringing all that stuff that was damaged. But he started right over again. My father was a hard worker, and I guess we had enough to go on. Of course, I think they had to go bankrupt. He did have to go bankrupt. But in 6 months, they gave him back the credit. In 6 months, he could go ahead and they gave him back where he could got credit again. Because they knew he was an honest man, and they knew he was an honest bankrupt.
And his health, did it improve
his
when
health
he came
stayed,
in?
Yeah, a little bit. But he had they reckon when he came here, he didn't know anybody, so he asked somebody who he can go to for asthma. And so they recommended a doctor. Do you know what the doctor gave him? Prescription, and it was, you know what it was? It was cigarettes. Cigarette, to smoke a certain kind of cigarette. It smelled real bad, and he would light the cigarette. He'd cover himself with a towel like this, so no air can come in, and so he could inhale the smoke.
Did it help him?
Killed him, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it didn't help. It's the worst thing it could have done. And they didn't have the doctors they have now then. See, they didn't have it. That's why people live longer now, because we have better medical.
Your sister said he also had Bright's disease.
But that affected the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that affected the kidneys. He just lived about 12 years. I only knew my father for 12 years.
So what year was it that he died then?
33.
33.
And I got married in 33. Would you believe it? I've been married 61 years.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to come to your courtship and marriage soon. Let's talk about your brothers and sisters from what you remember here in America. Nellie was the oldest.
Yeah.
And she married Louis.
Yeah.
His last name was Krashen.
Krashen, uh-huh.
And how many children did she have?
3. 2 sons and a daughter.
Do you remember their names?
Oh, yeah. Albert. Yeah, we see him, Albert, and Jack, and Margaret.
Where are they now?
The girl died, passed away, and they all live in Kansas City.
And tell me about Nellie as you remember her.
Oh, she was wonderful. I liked her a lot. She used to come here every year. She used to come and visit here with the kids, and we wanted her to move here. She loved Kansas City. She called this a farm. This farm. We were a bunch of farmers. Well, I loved it. I wished it was still that way, you know. And she just didn't want to do it. And then finally, she years later, her husband got sick. He was held up. They had a pawn shop. He was held up, and he just wasn't a really good businessman. He was a good man, just as good and sweet as he could be. He just didn't have it, too honest. You cannot be a businessman and be honest. And so they finally moved here. Well, by then my brothers were already big shots, and here he was a little man, didn't have no money or nothing. Anyway, he didn't like the way he was treated here. Well, they didn't mistreat him, they just didn't pay too much attention to him. And so they turned around and went back. See, if he had come when they were all young, and none of them had much, they could have, worked it out. But he came here too late. Like I was talking to the son. The son came here for the wedding. He likes it here. He says he wished, they had come here. But he used to come here as a little boy, and he loved it here. He says, he says that's the biggest mistake his mother and father did when they went back. They should have stayed here. But she says the brothers didn't accept him big. And my father was already dead when they got here, see? And my brothers were already big shots. In those days, not like now. Now they're wealthy, very wealthy. But then they were just making a nice living. And when you're in a nice living, it's hard to believe that here this man doesn't have nothing, But the fact that he was hurt, that hurt him. He was going into the store one morning, and this colored man was outside waiting for him, and my brother-in-law was so happy to have a customer so early, He says, "Oh, hello, okay, I'm opening." He opened the store, and boy, he knocked him over the head. He almost took half of his scalp. He just never was the same. He was okay, but so they never moved, and it was a big mistake for her. Because she had some very bad, hard years there.
And what year did she die?
Oh, about 4 years ago, I think. 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end. And then the kids come here. They come to visit us. They were here for the wedding. We had a wedding, and they come. And the other one married a girl in Mexico, and they didn't stay there. They came here, and they're doing well. They're all comfortable. And the daughter died. She had a bad marriage, and just didn't almost killed her. That's the story of her, of Nellie.
Okay. And next in line was Leah next?
Yeah, Leah, Leah was okay. She had a good marriage, had a good life. And she had a nice husband, good husband. And her life is real good. You've got her there. Mm-hmm. That's the story.
And then Ben, was he next?
Yeah, well, Ben had a good life. He died young. He died at 61. He had the shingles, but he also learned how to drink real good. And the drinking and the shingles just didn't go together. And he died at 61. He's got one son.
What did he die from?
Well, it was the shingles.
Mm-hmm.
The shingles can be light and they can be very, very heavy. Have you heard that? But he had the very bad ones. And they've gone to every doctor and they just couldn't. He wasn't supposed to drink. But he had a man working for him, that liked to drink, and he liked that man a lot. And so after work, they'd take a couple of drinks. And I don't know, he drank. He drank too much. And there was never any liquor in our house. My husband doesn't drink, and Jack doesn't drink. None of us drink. He picked up drinking. He was a nice guy. He was a lot of fun.
And who was he married to?
Dorothy Penner.
But he had a wife before that?
Yeah, he was married about 9 months.
What was that person's name?
I don't know. Such a short marriage, and it's been so long.
What happened?
Well, she was older than he was. And I think she was more, well, the way I figured it, my brother was still kind of he's still like in the rough, kind of I don't know. And she came from a different environment, she more refined. I don't say that he wasn't refined, but I don't know. He didn't have the, I don't know. I don't know how to say it, but they were just weren't. They weren't of the same.
Social class?
Huh?
Social class?
I don't know. She came from. She had 2 brothers and the sisters, and none of them were married. And I mean, they were old. She was spoiled by them. And she had one brother that was I don't know, eye doctor or something, and that made her feel very important, very high class,
Was she Jewish?
Yeah, and she felt like, oh yeah, we kept kosher, and she'd come to our house, and one day she came and she saw me when I was flicking the feathers off a chicken. Oh, why you do that? Why don't you just put it in hot water and get the, like that, I liked her because I was young, and I liked her, but I didn't. So she was criticizing too much. And my brother, he was a little bit on the, he wasn't rough. I don't know. I think he needed to get older, just to, because he was a great guy. He had a lot of friends. Everybody liked him. But it took a little while for him to. It took a little while to kind of polish up a little bit, You know what I mean? He was very, very smart, and in school he was good. He had a beautiful voice, and she was older. She expected more of him. She didn't give him a chance to get older, to pick up. When the boys are young, they don't care. And so he divorced her. They didn't have any children. That was the end of it, just 9 months. I liked her. I like everybody.
Were your parents upset by the divorce in those days?
Yeah. They were divorced. They were embarrassed. You were embarrassed, to have a divorce. That was a shande. You know what a shande is? Yeah. They were embarrassed. But then he married a very nice girl. Very nice. Had a lot of nice friends and had a good life.
Did they have children?
Yeah, they have a son. And he has Todd's in Houston, has a nice store. My brother was very artistic, he knew how to put a window together. He knew how to do a lot. He was very good. They were all good businessmen, all good. His brother Sam is wonderful. And then my brother Max, he wasn't much of a salesman. He wasn't much to that, but he was sure a good contact man. He made the best contacts with the right people, with the Spanish people. And that's their business. if they depended on just white, people, but they have, and I don't know, they're just very good. They're good business. They got a head for business. I know when business was beginning to get a little bit slow with the competition, they 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 built an upstairs in the store where you could go up, and they have stairs from the downstairs to go up. And they took in big man and fat man, tall and big. And it's a tremendous business, besides everything else. And they have twin boys that are just marvelous businessmen.
What are their names?
Mickey, Marky. You have it?
Actually, I did have that.
Mm-hmm. And then they have a daughter.
And her name?
Her name is Beryl, B-R-Y-L. Well, you have it all.
Mm-hmm.
You really didn't need me.
Oh, wait, I think you were, wait a second, I thought Beryl was Sam's daughter, no?
Yeah, we're talking about that.
Oh, before you started off talking about
yeah, well,
Max.
I finished when yeah.
Okay, and then you went on to Sam.
Yeah. Oh, but Max?
You started off talking about Max, and you were talking about his son and Todd.
About Max. Well, Max got 5 daughters. We haven't.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Max. We're talking about the business. That's right. Max wasn't much in the store. He would have made a living, but not a big living like he ended up. But he by himself, see. But he was a wonderful contact man, with the best people and the best customers, and he had a big name in right here in San Antonio. We're 65% Mexican, and I mean that he was they crazy about him. In fact, when he died, he left to school. It's a high school. I think once a year there is somebody can, the boy will get a what do you call it?
Like a scholarship or something?
Scholarship. Mm-hmm. $1,000 scholarship.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And he had 5 girls?
Yeah, he has 5 daughters. They're just wonderful girls.
And what are their names?
3 of them are married. Well, it starts with Florence Cost, and then it's Amy, and then it's Benita, Marilyn, and Libby. You got it all?
You keep in touch with all of them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love those girls. See, they lived in the next block on the corner, and there's an alley that's in the back of their house, in the back of our, and they were always coming through the alley here. And when they come and they bring the kids all, when they're little, and she used to take them through the alley and bring them in to show her. That's how they used to come. We're very close. Yeah.
But are they in San Antonio now?
No. This one is here. Florence Cost. The others are all, 3 of them are in California, and 1 was in Dallas, but she moved. Yeah, they're the twins and one of their older sisters. Yeah, we're very close with them.
Who are the twins?
Benita and Marilyn are twins.
So you really have a lot of twins in your family. You
have
a lot of twins.
Yeah, 3 sets.
Sam had twins too?
Sam had twin boys, and my other brother had twin girls, and then Jack has twin girls, my son. You know Jack?
I just know of him.
Oh, yeah.
And then your grandfather.
Yeah?
The story you just told me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Sam was married to somebody who was killed?
Yeah, she was killed,
What happened exactly?
Well, they were planning this trip to go to Las Vegas. Years ago, you didn't fly like you do now. You went by car. the whole family was going to Las Vegas. And so he bought 4 brand new tires. I understand now it's the biggest mistake you can make is to buy new tires for a trip. You should, when you buy the new tires, you try it out. Well, he bought the new tires because he didn't want any trouble, you know. And they were out. They were out about 120 miles, and they stopped for breakfast. They left early in the morning, and they stopped for breakfast. They had breakfast, and then she was kind of tired, you know. His wife was a little sleepy, tired, and the kids wanted to sit in the front. So she traded with the kids. She says, okay, you all sit in the front, and I'm going to go in the back, and I'm going to see if I can get some sleep. And they traveled about 20 miles when the tires started popping one after another. One popped, you know, blew out, and then another blew out, and then the third one blew out. When the third one blew out, that's when the car started rolling.
I thought there was some story that they had like a small refrigerator.
That's right. They had the refrigerator in the back where she was sitting. And I think that all came out all right. Just, you know, my brother had some broken something in the back, but everything could be fixed. The kids had a few cuts, and everything could be fixed. And she was given. The only thing it could have been is that box was full of ice and full of goodies in it, you know, because she was a wonderful mother, and the kids were just about 4 years old, the boys. And you know how kids are, they want to drink something all the time and eat some. So she had it all fixed for them. The only thing, when the car started turning about 3-4 times, that truck with the ice must have hit her in the head and killed her. That's the only thing we can figure out.
It must have been devastating for the family.
Oh, God, yeah, it was terrible. So they all did all right. He married again. And
who did he marry?
He married this Ethel Rosenstein. They were neighbors across the street. And I kind of think she liked him a lot, I guess. They were good friends. They partied together, you know, they went out together. And she came over, and she just couldn't do enough for the kids and divorced her husband to marry him.
Was that a scandal of sorts?
Oh, God, yeah, you know, but my brother says, I don't care. He says, I liked her, he says, but I never thought of marriage, something like that never entered my mind. He says, I was happy with you know, his wife. I never would have done anything about it. But, you know, men they get a kick out of having some woman kind of, you know, make over him. I guess she made over him, but he didn't, you know. He wouldn't have. And I know he wouldn't, because he's a kind of a shy. He was shy when it came to girls, you know, ladies. And so he says, look, I don't have a wife. I have nothing to lose. She wants to marry me, and the kids are crazy about her. So, but boy, was it scandal. Ugh.
Well, because people thought that he had tried to steal her away, or what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was afraid the husband might kill him one day.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had 2 boys with her other husband. The husband says the only way he'll divorce her without making a scandal. Because he said, if I divorce you, I'm going to put Sam as correspondent. The only way I'll divorce you if I get to keep one boy. The boy was about 10 years old, and the other boy was 4 years old. So she didn't know what to do, and she figured she'll give him the 10-year-old boy, and he can, you know, but she'll still be the mother. But the boy wouldn't look at her. After that, the boy wouldn't have nothing to do with her for a couple of years. And she didn't give up. She finally won him over. And he died. How lucky can she be? He died after a while, a couple of years. He married Elsa. He married again, but then he passed away.
The first husband, or the boy?
Yeah. But that was scandal. But it never bothered me because I knew that it was never nothing between them. They used to go out together, the couples. They were good friends. But she must have had kind of an eye on him.
Mm-hmm.
For him. She had an eye for him.
And how long was it after his...
They've been married 36 years.
But I mean, after Mildred died, how long was it till he...
About 6 months. That was too fast.
Yeah.
And I told my brother, I said, people are going to talk. Why don't you wait? He said, well, he says, I tell you what, she's giving up. I'm not giving up anything. And I says, I've got to have the kids. I need a mother for the kids. For two little boys, 4 years old, and the girl was 10. It was a terrible shock. And they had a good maid, that would work. The minute that happened, she wouldn't work for him. She wouldn't. Her family wouldn't trust him, alone with the man. Nice-looking young man. He was still a young man, when that happened. So they had no maid. And so anyway. But nowadays it's no scandal. They all do that. Those widowers, the wives die. I knew there was one widower. Oh, such a loving couple. And he was wonderful to his wife. She had cancer and she died. And 6 months later, they had the unveiling, and she came to the unveiling. The girl he was going with, they got married. Nobody said nothing about it.
And the kids, they survived psychologically intact?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One of the questions that, going back a little bit, that I wanted to ask you, the name Penner, do you know if it was always that or what?
Penharsh.
And do you know what that means?
I don't know, it just doesn't have a meaning. Does a name usually have a meaning? Mm-hmm. No, I'm not aware of that.
Wasn't a Yiddish-ism for something?
No, Penharsh. That's the only name I know.
And it got changed?
To Penner.
Just, they purposely changed it, or just was
when he went to become a citizen?
Mm-hmm.
That man, got was real nice to my father. He felt so sorry for him. Here he's got 6 kids, and he's alone, and American man, and he said, Mr. Penner, why don't you change your name? Your kids are coming here. They won't even be able to, they won't know how to spell your name. It'll take them forever to learn how to spell it. Why don't you change your name? And so you did you work here in San Antonio after you finished school? Yeah, I worked there. I didn't go, I went to high school just 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I met the teacher a year or so after she saw me, and she found out I didn't go, she expected me to go to college because she thought I was smart. I just memorized everything, and I was so anxious to learn. And because I had to be home, my mother had gotten sick, real sick, where she couldn't do anything.
What was wrong with her?
She had 8 children, and the doctors later said she should have had 1. She was very narrow. Was a big woman, but she didn't have any
pelvis.
Her pelvis. Mm-hmm. And so she had to work so hard to give birth. In those days, you had to really work to give birth. They didn't make it easy on you, and so she had all her insights were not in the right place. They were all moved away. So she had a lot of pain. Always had pain. And then to finish it all up, she got a tumor on her kidney had to be removed. I mean, that's just some of the things. I mean, there was always something. So while I was going to school, I'd get up in the morning, go to school. I'd come back for lunch, and and I'd eat lunch with her and fix something for her to eat, and then I'd rush back to school. Then I'd come back. Then I had to make up the bed and straighten up the house, and it was just too much. It was just getting me down. I just couldn't handle it. So I went to. So I thought, well, I'm going to go to work, and I get a maid. My father, every penny he made, he put it back in the business. See, he was so crazy to build up a business. And so they didn't have a maid. And so I said, I can't take this anymore. And I'll just get a maid and I'll pay for it. And that's what I did. And so I went to work at Wolf and Marks, and I worked in the jewelry store, jewelry department. And that's it. And I got married.
Now, how long did you work at Wolf
I
and
worked
Marks?
for about a little over a year and a half.
And how did you meet your
Oh yeah,
husband?
no. Before that, I have to. I tell you what, I said I can't go to high school. I got to get to work. So my father sent me to business college. That's right, business college. It paid up for a whole works. And I went to business. It was the same thing again. I'd come home, I had to do this, I had to wash my clothes, I had to iron my own clothes. It was just hard. It was just terrible. So I went to business college, and I thought, well, maybe I can get a job in that line. I just couldn't. I'm just not a paperwork person, I'm just not. And I took everything. I took the whole schmear, bookkeeping. I took everything. And they sent me out on a trial, And I'm telling you, I was so nervous. To type one page, I must have used up 20 pages. I just wasn't. I said, you know what? That's not for me. And no, okay, I was going to stay with it. But this lady, this friend of mine, that told us where kids come from, she in the meantime got divorced, I hadn't seen her since that time. And she was divorced, and she was again visiting her aunt. She was just a second. She said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I don't know. Anyway, she says, I'm working at Wolf and Marks, and they're looking for help for Christmas, Christmas. I'm looking for help. They're looking for help, and you can give me as reference, because I'm working there. And I says, okay, I'll just work for a week and see what happens. Well, I go to work there. Every night when I come home, they want to know if I got fired already. You get fired? No. Did you get fired? No. Then I come home one night and I say, look, they want me to regular. They fired all the girls, and they wanted me to stay. So I stayed on, and I got a little girl, and I stayed on. And I stayed there for a year and a half. Yeah, that was the end of my business college. So I got married, and...
Oh, wait. Where'd you meet your husband then?
Oh, I was a blind date.
And who fixed you up?
It was a young man he lived out of town. And he called me one day, and he said, Ellen, I thought, yeah. He says, well, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm not doing anything. And he says, I'm nursing my arm. What's the matter? I was in an accident, and my brother was driving. He turned over, and nobody's hurt but me. I get a broken collarbone. And I was still working at Frost at that time, I'm not Frost, Wolf and Marks. I was just hired for Christmas. And I said, but it's okay, but I have to have my arm in a sling because I can't use it. It's kind of numb. She said, well, I want you to go out with us. We'll pick you up. And he talked me into it. I says, well, look, I can't. My sister was here from Kansas City, Nellie. Said, gay, gay, gay. I'll fix it, gay. But they got tired of me staying home so much, a young girl. And so I says, okay, but I can't do much, I can't do it. She said, oh, but just ride around. And that was my date. And so when he came to pick me up, my sister fixed me up, she tore the dress open. She tore it open so I could, get it on my arm. Then she sewed it on me. And she wanted me to go. And he comes to the door, and the doorbell rings the doorbell. And my sister, who was like this, big, big woman, opens the door. And he got sick at his stomach. Because the last couple blind dates he had, they were terrible.
But he thought your sister was you?
Yeah, he was from the country, see? And he didn't go with Jewish, so the country boys would come in once in a while to the city and go out with Jewish girls. So he thought I was, and then he heard my sister say, Ellen, your date is here. Then I came out, and he was very happy. And that was it. We went
how long did you court?
About 2 years, 2.5 years. He was from 70 miles from here. And he would come in, and we would go out, and he was about 20, and I was about 18, 19. There's a year difference, right?
And when did it become obvious that this was it?
That he'd come in every weekend, and I kind of looked forward to seeing him, and he couldn't, he was very anxious. He says he fell for me the minute he saw me. I was telling him about Daddy. Especially, but after he saw Nellie, and that's it. And then we went together, and when I got married, I left Beaufort and went to live in Gonzales, a little town.
All right, a couple things I want to ask you. How come you never went to work in Penner's? Did your father?
My brothers were, have you heard of self-made man people? They're murdered to work for. Nobody could work. No family could work for them. No, they're the only people that I know that family can work for them. Even their own son-in-law couldn't work for them. They're very demanding, and they seem to expect more of family than they do of. And yet they have some people working for them for years. They have one man that's been there 30 years, I think. Even my husband went to work for him when we first came back and couldn't. They just I don't know what it is. What do you think it is? A sickness?
Don't ask me, I'll tell you.
You think they don't like family or something?
No, that's not it. They're very
They like family, huh?
self-centered and selfish.
Yeah. They don't want no family. The son-in-laws couldn't work for them. I did help him one time for a couple months. I'd go there on Saturday after I was married, and the register. And then they once said, well, the wife wants to come. So, okay, goodbye. They're very funny, and they'll give you, the kind of people, they'd rather give you something than help you get it, Have you heard of people like that? They get more pleasure in giving than in helping you. What do you like?
I don't know if pleasure's the word.
Well, I don't know if they have pleasure, but they will. Yeah, well, the self-made people are very hard to. They know all the answers, and they're too smart. They think, but otherwise they're fine. They'll take me out, they'll take us out, and they'll buy us a nice dinner and all that, and I let them pay. I don't ever offer to pay.
Good. You learned much too late.
And, but they just don't want no family. I don't know. Maybe they don't want the family to know what they're doing. I don't know. Now you got the answer? What are you going to put down?
All right. So anyhow, back to your courtship. So you courted for 2 years, and
Yeah.
Did your husband formally propose?
Yeah, oh yeah. He brought the ring. Well, I knew that, he cared a lot because he called and there wasn't a Saturday night that he wasn't here, rain or shine. And I visited his mother, his home. And they were all very, nice. He said, "What's there not to like?"
And how had the
They were
family
all
ended up in Gonzales?
American people, Americans uh, that had very little Jewish background. And so I kind of think, I keep thinking, I think maybe they were a little disappointed. I think they probably would have been happier with a Gentile girl. But they were very nice to me. And my mother-in-law, before she died, she was in the hospital, she says, if I had gone up to heaven and picked a daughter-in-law, I couldn't have picked a better one. I treated her really good, real nice. We got along real good. But they just didn't, there wasn't anything in my family for them. My mother didn't speak English. My father was already dead. My brother had an accent. My sister had an accent. And then they're the so-called American, And those
how
days.
had they ended up in Gonzales?
Who?
His family.
How did they end up?
I mean, how did they were the only Jewish family there, you said?
The husband, the grandma, she was a New York girl. And the fellow she married came from Gonzales. He was a traveling man.
Was he Jewish?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he met her, and she was no beauty, and I guess she was excited to be she wasn't a pretty woman. Well, she was in a way, but she wasn't pretty. She had a long nose, She wasn't.
So this is Abe's parents?
Abe's grandmother.
Grandmother.
And
what was her name?
Joseph. And this guy she married, this grandfather of Abe's, he was a traveling man. He was selling lightning rods. Have you ever heard of lightning rods? Do they still use those up east? They do? Well, see, we don't have anything like that here. He was selling lightning rods, and he met her and fell in love, and he brought her to Gonzales. And when she came to Gonzales on a horse and buggy, they had a horse and buggy, and the ground was this deep, in mud, when it rained. There was no paved streets there. There was just a little country town. And so they got married, and then they opened up a store there. She stopped traveling. They opened up one of these country stores where you sell everything, thread and needles and food and everything. And they got married, and she had 3 daughters. And the mother, the mother was born in Gonzales.
What were those 3 girls' names? Do you know?
Blossom.
Only one on
One was Blossom, and one was Sweetie. They call her Sweetie Ray. They named her Sweetie. Zissel, I guess. Zissel, so they called her Sweetie Ray. Ray, and I don't know the third one. I never knew the third daughter because she died before I ever came in the family. But Abe liked her so much. Abe said, yeah, that's right. He would know. And they made it, they were very successful. They were, real nice people, but they didn't fit in with my family. But it was okay. I mean, we got a little. What? Lily. Lily, that was the third girl.
Well, talk to me a little bit about your in-laws then.
She was very nice.
But that was Blossom?
No. Oh, Blossom was, the in-law. Are you talking about my mother-in-law?
Your mother-in-law.
Yes, she was very nice to me.
What was her name?
Ray.
And her maiden name was?
Joseph.
And then who was Friedman?
Blossom. That was Blossom.
Okay.
And the third one is Lily. No, Lily. No. Leah. No, what they call her?
Daddy said Lillian.
Lillian, uh-huh.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Ray.
Yeah.
What do you remember about what she looked like?
Well, I was married. How old were you? You were 2.5 years old when she died. So.
According to what I've written down, I was 3, technically.
Let me see. Let's see, how long did I know her? Jack was 8. He was in. She was 53 years old when she died.
What did she die from?
She burned herself. She had 3rd-degree burns. Her eyesight was bad. And she was a widow by then. She was a widow. And the sister was worried about her living in the house alone and having to light, stoves. Yeah, and so they built a floor furnace. Do they ever have those? They had a furnace under the house, and on top they had like a grill. And one night she was going to the bathroom and she fell on it. And she got burned oh, it's terrible. And again, in those days they didn't have Brooksfield or wherever they take them. They tried to treat her in the hospital and they couldn't. They did everything, they had the best doctors for her. And she just couldn't do it. Couldn't make it. She had infection. And she was only 53 years old. And her father was 45 years old when he died.
What was his father's name?
What was his father's name?
Jack.
Jack, sure. Jake. Mm-hmm. I call him Jake.
And what happened? Tell me what you remember about him.
He had a hernia. I never met him.
You never met him?
He had a hernia, and he got pneumonia after the ether pneumonia. It was very common in those days.
You mean while they were going to repair the hernia?
Yeah, they repaired it, and they gave him that stuff, and he couldn't make it. So he lost his parents very young.
And were there other children? He had brothers and
sisters?
A
daughter.
And what was?
Saline. She's named after Grandma Joseph's husband. His name was Sal.
I never knew that.
Saline.
Okay, and is she still alive?
No, I don't think so. Mm.
Now, Bernard was interested in Aunt Blossom.
Oh, yeah, he knew her. Well, she was very rich. She was very prim. She dressed real well. And she didn't have any patience with anybody unless they were important. There had to be somebody. And, right? Isn't that right? Is that how you would describe her?
Didn't I throw up every time I went to stay with her?
Was she Ray's sister?
Huh? Yeah, she was Ray's sister. Even Ray didn't like her.
And where did she live? Did she also live in Gunzel?
There was a block there, and there were 3 homes. And they all belonged to one daughter, and then the other daughter, and then the parents. All in one block.
And Bernard said he had very fond memories of her.
Yeah, that's right.
She was an interesting character, at least?
Very interesting. She dressed very nice, very nice. She had a nice business, very nice business.
What?
Everything but the fine stuff. She didn't have like the old timers had all kinds of things, little things. But she had all the fine silks, Stetson hats, she had the fine, and she loved the Gentile people, loved them. There's nothing she wouldn't do as long as they're Gentile. When it came to Jews, she detested them.
So what
didn't detest them, but she didn't want no part of them.
So what happened when she met your family?
Huh?
How did she treat you when she...
She treated me pretty good, but I think she treated me, but I think she would have been happy if he'd have married some society Gentile girl. There was, the little towns have a lot of society, Um, I think should have been happier with that. But I think in my family, well, she was very nice to me. She was nice to my kids. But you could tell, that in a way I understood her. My mother couldn't talk to her because everybody in my family had accents yet. They all spoke with an accent. And I think that bothered her a little bit, I think. Don't you think? And so she was very precise, very, very, But I mean, I knew how to handle her. I got along all right. I got along good with the grandmother too. I didn't like them, but I got along with them. I mean, I acted like I did. You have to be two-faced in this world, You have to understand why they're that way. See, they had a good life, wonderful life. They never had any hardships. They never had to do anything. But then all of a sudden, it hit them all. The poor sister, that Abe loved her. The one that died. She died. She lost her husband and a son.
This was Lillian?
Yeah, she lost her husband and a son within a year.
What did they die from?
The son came home from school and he complained of a headache and never got up. The husband he shouldn't have eaten things, and he ate everything that wouldn't eat him, and he shouldn't have. He was big, kind of big, and he just ate. He was a very successful, big businessman. They had the biggest business in Gonzales.
Which was what?
They had a what do you call it? What did they have? All the chickens and all the turkeys and everything that you eat came from there. They had it was a block square, They call it,
Was not called a hatchery?
No. It had a fancy name, nothing like that. Well, they didn't hatch them, They came hatched to them. They had, what did they call that?
I can see it in my mind.
Well, it's where you store things. It's all ice, Everything was ice. Ask Daddy, what did they call that business?
Whose business is it?
Uh,
Lillian's?
Lillian's husband.
What's the name? Stalls. It was the big business of the city. So they were big people. And we were just little people then,
Mm-hmm.
The Penners had a nice little store, but Edisha, nice Edisha people. And they went to the synagogue, they went to the temple. But they treated me good. I mean, they had to because I had my own family. I mean, I didn't have to depend on their love for me. My mother-in-law and I got along real good. My mother-in-law was different. She was a little different than they. Easier to live with,
Mm-hmm.
But they were spoiled. They had everything very good. They didn't have any hardships. So that's it.
So you got your ring,
Mm-hmm.
and your father wasn't alive, but did Abe ask your mother for your hand formally?
No. He died after I was married 3 months.
Oh, I thought you said he died before, so did
Yeah.
he ask your father for your hand formally?
Nah,
No.
he wouldn't do that. He'd be too bashful. They took it for granted because a guy keeps coming to your house every Saturday night and stays and then towards the last 4 or 5 months, we had an extra bedroom. He slept there. My mother said, why should he go? We got the bedroom, My brother got married, and my brother Sam, he didn't get married until he was quite 27 years old. And so he got married, and he says, look, why should he go to a hotel? And in those days, they didn't have to worry about him sleeping in your bedroom, sneaking in. There was nothing like that ever.
Right.
In those days, you were a virgin, by golly.
And when you got married, were you, after your friend had told you what to expect, were you
I never saw her again.
No, but I'm saying when you finally got married on your honeymoon, were you
Yeah. Well,
aware of what was happening?
By then I already knew I was working, and I came in contact with a lot of people. You know, I knew the answers.
It was called Stahl Brothers. They sold cotton. They sold wool.
Yeah.
They had clothing.
Yeah.
Work clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, they had everything. They controlled the whole town. And so she married, and then Blancy, who she's interested in, see, that was the family. And Blancy, who what's name is interested in, she married from Natchez,
Mississippi?
Louisiana. That was another big family, but another big name, you know, with big money. And she married, she lived there for some time. And then she moved to she moved back to Gonzales. And he died young too. He was 28 years old when he died. And she
Who,
never
Blossom's husband?
Yeah, she never remarried.
And what did he die from at that early age?
They claim that he ate. What? What, eh? Oh yeah, they were big people, big business.
The same business.
So I think Abe was kind of a disappointment to them. He just married a plain vanilla.
They treated him that way too.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I was gonna. What were you asking?
He died at 28.
Well, he ate some what is it? Shrimp. No, not shrimp. The other that slides down your mouth. What do you call it?
Oysters.
Oysters. He ate oysters, and they had a cook, you know, and everything. Everything was perfect. He went to sleep, and he got sick during the night and died. Never even got to get a doctor.
Like food poisoning, maybe? Or?
I imagine that's what he had. And he was 28 years old. He came from a nice big family. I met the family. They were really nice people.
What was that family name? Oh, that was Friedman.
Friedman from Natchez. He had a brother that was in politics, real big. Real big. He had a big, politician. They were real nice people. They had a lot of money, big money. They were big, but they had a little bit more Jewish in them than this family. They were have a little bit more. I like that family. Yeah, they were nice people.
Mm-hmm.
I could handle them. It didn't bother me. But I knew what they were thinking of mine. They didn't think too much. That accent probably killed them.
Scary.
So you tell me let's just talk about your wedding a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
details.
Got married in the living room. I walked in from the kitchen to the living room.
That was a short walk. I remember that house.
My flower girls was my niece. One niece that was about 10 years old. One niece about 8 years old. One niece about 6 years old. All my nieces were my flower girls. They all walked in behind me.
And what kind of dress did you wear?
A white dress. Just a plain white dress. You know that dress you had that you wore white and it had those stuff on your arm right here? Remember, you were going to you cleaned it. You were going to fix it up for your daughter, and I don't think she ever wanted it. I think you wore it to one of the weddings. It was just a plain length, just a plain dress. You could wear to town, That's all. And a little.
And who married you?
Rabbi.
Yeah, Rabbi Tamarkin. We had a rabbi, a real nice rabbi. And it was real nice. And I had a friend that sang.
You forgot that Sonny was in your wedding.
Sonny.
Lipschitz.
Yeah, I've said the whole family. All my nieces and
I heard you
nephews.
name all the girls, but I didn't hear you name him.
The wedding party. We were laughing. We were hysterical. Well, one time they came in, I said, that was my wedding party, my nieces. Well, we're real close, and I love them very much. I think I have that picture in one of those things.
You stay here, I'll see.
Yeah, it was okay.
So then, did you have a reception at home also?
Oh yeah, we had food. We had food. The whole house was cleared out. The whole house, just the living room and the kitchen, and the back bedroom for my parents. They just took all the furniture out, and they had tables, and they didn't have a lot of people, maybe 100, and they had food, and that was it.
And then you went on your honeymoon?
Then we went.
Where'd you go?
We went to Dallas, and we stayed there about 3 days, and then we came home, and we didn't have much money.
But you went to Gonzales. You lived in Gonzales then?
Yeah, I lived in Gonzales for about 1.5 years.
And what was Abe doing then?
He was working for his aunt, that Blossom, but she was hell on wheels. She treated him like dirt. She just never liked him, because she had another nephew, that was brilliant. Abe was just plain. He was a brilliant. I mean, he was an A student. He was everything big. Abe was just a everyday guy. And so she's the kind that has to have a pet. She has to have one. That was her pet, and he died. He was 19 years old, and I think she had it in for him.
What did he die from?
Again, he went to Texas University, and he was on one of the biggest clubs that they have. I think it was Pi Sig. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that was the number one. It was Phi Sig, and he was brilliant. And he was there one semester, was fine. He was there the second semester, and he came home for a weekend. And again he died. I don't know what the hell they were feeding those people. He ate something again, and he came home. He had a headache, and they gave him something, and he went to sleep, and that's it. That was the end of him. And so I think she had it in for him, because he's still alive, and her pet nephew had to die. Really, I really do believe it.
So you stayed there for 1.5 years and then came to San Antonio?
Yeah, after my father passed away, I more or less just had to come here and see what I can do for my mother. She was here alone, the house, big house, and my father gone. My father died, and nobody there. They'd come in at night. They'd have a maid, and she'd come in and clean up and leave, and just nobody there. My sister Leah, she had a small baby, and Leah was never good with sick people. In fact, my mother didn't even want her. She wouldn't trust her to give her the medicine, because she just wasn't good with it. I don't know. She just had a wonderful person, but she just had a way about her but I don't know. In fact, I don't think she had patience with sick people.
Mm.
You have to have patience. Oh, God, do you have to have patience? Oh, do I have to have patience? But, it's hard. My daughter's just darling and good, but God forbid, I don't think she would. She doesn't have a lot of patience. But sometimes when I get mad at her, I call her Layla. Because she's a lot like her, just as good as gold. But very impatient.
So did you and Abe move in with your mother?
Yeah, there's nobody
the
there.
house?
Yeah, there was nobody there, just, us. But then after I moved in, I couldn't get rid of the family. Every night I'd be over. And, you know, they'd get into everything, the kids and the boys and the, but I said, when my mama was alone, they didn't come. Isn't that funny? I guess they wanted to be with younger people. Every night they'd be there. Every Sunday they'd be there. You know, they were really good. They were pretty good to her. Now, you know, they were pretty good. Of course, you know, the wives didn't work. That makes a difference, you know. And they started closing the store early. You know, they were already, you know, came up. And so they were, you know, that was nice. We had a good relationship. My brother that had 3 kids at that time, Max, and he loved to go on picnics. And so he would come and pick me up, pick my mama up, and then I had a little boy, Jack, and Abe worked on Sundays. We'd always drive to New Braunfels. How many miles to New Braunfels?
30.
Yeah, and no air conditioning. Tell me how we handled it. So.
Did you go picnic up there?
Oh yeah, go to a picnic. Oh yeah, it was wonderful. And see, my brother Max didn't keep kosher, so he would bring a roast. And oh, you should have seen all those in the family that kept kosher. We couldn't even get enough. Because a kosher roast is a fortune, and you can never get a good roast because that's a roast from the hip. And I don't think you can, in Jewish you can't use a certain. Did you know that? You can't use it, right? Because it's near the tuchus, I guess, isn't it? Why is it that they can't use that? She's a vegetarian.
That's what I had for lunch.
So
I wish well, I think I did know that. That vegetarian sandwich was good. I should have brought you one. It's about me.
Okay, so you moved back here to San Antonio, and your mother lived with you.
Yeah.
And let's talk about her in those later years of her life.
It was rough.
Because?
She had surgery after surgery. And I just stayed right there. And I know that one evening there was a big affair in the family, someone's anniversary, and we were going to the Anacostia room. It was, you know, even now it's a nice place to go. And he came home early from work, a little early, and I fed the kids their early meal. And I was all ready just to slip on a dress, and she was in the bedroom. My mother was in the bedroom. I heard her say, "Oi, oi, hey, oi." You know, my mother never had a pain that she didn't let me know about it. I went in there. She says, "Oi, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts." But I couldn't go. How can I go away when she feels so bad? I just called him and told him I can't make it. I never will forget that. Do you think one of them offered to come back and so I can go? And once they got there, they had a lot of fun. They never even called to see how she was. So, see, it takes one in the family that really cares. They're good. They were always good, but they just never had that. And even, you know, my sister, she was good as gold, but she just didn't have the feeling that I had, you know. I don't know what it is. I think I'm being stupid, or is it just the nature? What is it?
I think most people in a family, if there's one person who takes on that responsibility, everyone else defers to that person.
That's what I did.
Wow.
So that's about it, and that just went on and on and on.
And when did your mother finally die?
14 years. She lived with me 14 years. Jack had his bar mitzvah, and I couldn't go to the bar mitzvah.
Because?
Because she got sick. She'd always get sick on. And I had a luncheon for him, And I had lunch and just had 12 boys in a real nice place, and I couldn't be there. So I had one of the mothers.
I don't understand. Somebody else couldn't come take care of her,
No.
so you go to your own son's bar mitzvah?
Yeah. So some of the mothers whose child we had, I gave her a check. I knew how much it would cost, and I just signed it and told her if she would just go there and kind of, you can't leave 14-year-old boys are just like babies yet sometimes, They start playing around and goofing around and just, but if they know somebody's there, an adult is there, don't you think so? You almost have to be, but I don't know how it is now, but that was 50 years ago. No, not 50, 40 anyway. So she stayed and she paid the bill.
And where was your husband then?
He stayed with me because I had a baby. I had a month-old baby. My youngest baby is over 13 and a half years younger than Jack.
And what's that child's name?
Huh?
What's the youngest one's name?
Richard.
Richard. And it's pretty amazing that.
Huh?
It's pretty amazing that Leah or somebody wouldn't come and help you out.
They never offered. No, I was so independent. I wouldn't ask. I just wouldn't ask.
You don't need to ask if it's your own child's bar mitzvah. Somebody should offer.
Yeah, that's what I think. So anyway, she went, and she, did things, and she wanted me. She just wouldn't let go of me. I was her God and her everything. And even right now, I do everything. I do everything. Of course, I don't have Leah, but I have a daughter-in-law. She's okay. She's a good wife. She's a good mother, but she'll never call me and say, Mom, would you like to go somewhere? And I'll come over and stay. Or even say, come on, let's go for an hour. We could leave him for an hour, but, no. And I don't ask. My son's pretty good. Jack's pretty good, but, men work. Jack calls at least twice a day. She never calls. She has a mother that needs her, so I guess she's busy with her mother. She's a wonderful mother and a devoted grandmother. Devoted. But she, as a
Let's
daughter.
talk about each of your kids and their children, your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren.
What?
Let's talk about each of your kids.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about Jack and Mitzi now, but I want to hear about each of the grandchildren, and you have some
they're
great.
They're great. They're just cute as
Jack and Mitzi have the twins.
Yeah.
And what are their names?
Their name is Rachel. The girls, Lori and I call her Helene, Laney. And she has a boy, Barry, just got married. They're a very happy family. And let me tell you, her son just married a girl that I wished I had a daughter-in-law. She's not Jewish, but she took the Jewish religion. She's the sweetest thing you ever saw. She called me the other day. She said, Mima, I want to come over and show you the pictures of the wedding. And I says, okay, when are you coming over? She says, I'll come after work. I says, okay then, I'll have some food for you. I said, and it's not going to be anything I cooked. It's going to be some, it's so easy. I got everything together. I didn't have to do anything. I just made a salad. And I got that chicken. What else did I get? Chicken and what else? Oh, and corn, something that they like. And she's a wonderful daughter-in-law. Wonderful. And that's the one that just got married. Her name is Kathy. She's a really sweet girl.
Okay, so, and then Barbara was just here.
Yeah, you met Barbara. She's wonderful.
She comes to help you with you?
Oh, yeah, sometimes, we go a little bit now, but we didn't, for a while, we didn't drive. Now he drives and we go out for lunch or we mess around. And she'll come over, and when we didn't, we just, she would come over right after school. Take him he loves to ride, and I like to ride too, She'd come over and take him for a long ride, and we'd stop and get something to eat. She's just good as gold. And I don't ever tell her anything like she wants to go on a trip, like she's going for Labor Day somewhere. I'm fine. I'm happy to see her go. I'm not demanding, but I do expect a little,
And what's her husband's name?
Ronald Argo. He's very nice. He's got a mother in a nursing home, and all the women in that nursing home envy her. The son, he's so good. Just a real good guy.
And their children?
They have whose children?
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara has two wonderful. She has a son and a daughter. And the daughter has two children, and the son has three. And the son lives in Houston. And Robin's family are all here. They're very happy. They're very nice.
And then you had Richard. You said he was.
Yeah, Richard's divorced, and he has a 13-year-old boy. We had lunch with him yesterday. Just a darling boy. And he doesn't hardly ever see him. He got the idea that the boy doesn't care for him because she was going with some man from work that she fell for. And he had two children. They would come over on the weekend, and they would call him Daddy, so he called him Daddy. And he heard him call him Daddy, so he don't want no part of him. He says, I'm not his daddy. But I talked to him yesterday. He's in Dallas. I said, you know what? We had lunch with your son today, and he's such a darling. He's such a sweet kid. And she said, well, that's good. He was glad that we went with him. And I said, and guess what? He asked about you. And he said, really? He really asked about me? I said, yeah, he did. He asked about you. It wasn't a friendly divorce. See, she surprised him with the divorce, and he feels bitter towards her. And so he's letting it out on the boy. No, I know it's bad, but I try my best. It was his birthday. We took him to lunch, gave him a nice little check, and had the waiters sing happy birthday. And he's just sweet as he could be. And he remembers until he was about 7 years old. We were, I'd see a lot of him.
But he lives here in San Antonio now?
Mm-hmm. she's married. She's happily married. And she says, I'll always be her family. She'll never forget us, We were, so good to her. And she says, I know this fellow she's married to, has parents, but she doesn't have the feeling for them like she has for us. I love Vaughn. Isn't she the nicest thing you've ever? Have you worked with Vaughn? She is so sweet.
It's great.
When Abe was in the hospital so many times, she would always come. She'd come. Sometimes she'd come every day. And I tell you who else you would like in my family is Florence. Florence Cost.
Bernard said he's very close to her.
She's very nice. You'd love her. I like all my nieces and nephews. I just love them all. And I always keep reminding something he said when he was a little boy, and I use it a lot.
Who, this is Bernard?
Yeah, his father gave him an allowance, I think a quarter a week. When he was a little boy, maybe 3, 4 years old. And so one day his father forgot to give him the allowance. So he said to him, Daddy, you didn't give me my allowance today. And Daddy said, oh, I didn't? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. He takes out the quarter and gives it to him. He said, when I get old, are you going to give me an allowance? He says, yes, Daddy, when you get old and ugly, I'll give you an allowance. I keep reminding him. There's so many little things he said. And they moved into a new home, when they first moved in, his parents. He was like his mother, his mother, you could eat off the floor. She was a little bit too much that way. And, but that was her. And so she moved into this house, and it was raining. It had rained that day, and the grass wasn't all, done, covered. I mean, the grass hadn't come out real good, and so I came in the house, and he said to me, "And Alan, did you wipe your feet? Did you wipe your shoes?" I wanted to kill him. I said, "Come here, I'm going to kill you right now." What do you think I did? And I remind him, I said, I never will forget when you asked me if I wiped my feet and my shoes. He was such a cute kid. He was the pride of the family.
Why was that?
He was just cute. He was smart, very smart. Just a smart kid. And very cute and just a pretty little boy. Well, see, I was very close to all the kids. I'm telling you, I had all the kids in my bridal party. I said they were, you know what? It was so funny. The synagogue had a 50-year and over evening one, and the rabbi was going to bless us all. What did you call it? And he performed a service. What did they call it? It has a name. He put the ring on your finger and all that stuff. And so it was a lot of couples. And we were married at that time. We were married about 52, 53 years old. We had a couple that was married over 70. And it was a lot of fun. And so we had all the nieces, they all came, and they all here, and everybody had their table, with their own family. And so one of them says, "Okay, now let's take a picture with the bridesmaids." Your bridesmaids. That was hysterical.
Bernard said that there were times that you and your siblings, not so much you, but that Sam and Ben and Leah sometimes wouldn't talk and had difficulties.
Yeah, they did.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, Leah was very critical. and things bothered her. That's about all I know. It wasn't for any reason. They were, especially Max. She'd have an argument, discuss some, and another thing. See, Max's wife was kind of, she was nice, just as nice, as sweet as she could be. But somehow or other, I don't know, Leah just didn't. She didn't see eye to eye with the brothers, and she was very critical. But that all passed off. That was at the beginning, and they'd been met. See, they'd been met for months, and I don't know. She'd say something about Jeanette. That's his wife, and that bothered her. That bothered him. It was all right for him to say it because he wasn't the best husband in the world, and that's the only thing. She was critical of him, and that's all I know. But they stayed mad. See, I never got mad at my family that I would stay mad. I would be angry at myself, but that's it. But she would get mad. I don't know. She'd have a real hard fuss. They just fuss about things. And I really don't know. Did he say anything about it?
No, but he was curious to hear
Yeah. It's just that
why this was.
It's just that she was very critical of the wives, and that's something I have learned a long time ago. Don't ever criticize your husband's wife. Like when I was a little kid, I used to hear my mother say, "When two people share one pillow, just you stay out of it." Have you ever heard that? When two people share one pillow, you stay out of it. I don't know, what was it? And one time she got mad at my brother Ben's wife. We'd go on picnics, and she would bring a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. She and Max, they really would bring a lot of stuff. I would bring a little, but I never. See, I always had, I had my hands full, and they'd come to the house, and then we'd have them over about 3-4 times a year for big meals. And so then they would come. She would come and she would eat, and she never offered to bring anything. So Leah made some remark, and that's what started it. Then they were mad for a while. The husband got in, she got in. You get the wife mad, the brother will get mad, right? And so that's about the only time, that I know of. Otherwise, it wasn't anything serious. It was really stupid things. And I don't know why she always. Oh yeah, my brother Max was a show-off. He would love to just sit and sing Yiddish songs and little songs, like when we had the Passover, he would try to sing songs that nobody cared about, and he had a good voice, and that bothered the heck out of her. And she'd instead of just holding it in, she'd have to make a remark about it, Oh, she said, Zena, I hate you none, something like that. She would mumble, about it, and that's what made her mad. But it was never anything serious, never.
Did you always have seders together with everybody?
We had it in our house. And then when my mother passed away, Leah had it a couple times. And then Jeanette, my brother Max, had it a couple times. And then, I don't know, they looked for excuses not to have it anymore. And then I had it. I had it for about 10, 15 years. And I used to have around 29 people. In fact, I just stopped 2 years ago. I was just, I had him on my hands, and I was just tired. It was no use looking for trouble. And like I used to have him for Rosh Hashanah, I used to have for 2 days. I used to have him for, I'd have him 4 times a year for big meals. And I didn't mind the cooking now. It's just first of all, it's just too hot. Like the Rosh Hashanah falls on uh, September the 5th or 6th.
This year it's Labor Day.
It's hot. See, this machine cost us a fortune. It's supposed to take care of 2 rooms, and it doesn't. When 10 people come in, it's too hot. It doesn't heat it. It's all right for us, just a few people. And so I stopped, and I feel so guilty. I'm dying to. So last year I said, well, I got to have it for Rosh Hashanah. I can't stand it. So I had it, and then I said, what a damn fool I was. I was just too tired. After all, I'm not a chicken. I'm an old chicken.
You're doing pretty good today, I'll tell you. Back to this story about the sisters and brothers not speaking.
Right.
When Max, with the business and Todd's and
that was problem.
And Zips, was that all sort of the same kind of issues, or was it that the brothers were too difficult? You said before that it was hard to work for them because they
No, but what are you talking about?
Men.
Why?
There was some story that
when Ben died, you mean?
When Ben died and his children.
Oh well, I'll tell you what happened. It was really Ben's fault. My brother Sam married when he was married to his first wife. She came from a very poor family from St. Louis. I mean poor. And in fact, it got so that before she died, the husband died, the father died, didn't leave him nothing. There was nothing. And the son helped her a little, and then Sam had to send some money every month for her. And they would come here, and they would come here and stay at the house with them. And it was their business, my other brother's business to butt in. And Sam didn't like it either, He's not a, I don't know. He's a good man, but he's got a lot of faults. My brother, and so what was I going to get to?
I was asking about.
Oh yeah. Ben had it in his mind. No, they were writing up a will, a store will. It happened in the family here when something like that happened. One brother, the brother died. The wife broke the company because she wanted her husband's part, or she wanted it right now. And the moment they had to go bankrupt to pay her off, You cannot take money out of a business, And because a lot of money is paperwork, in business. You know what I'm talking about. So he was always worried something like that. So he was worried that Sam, he was kind of with his leg, limping, and he's falling, and so he was kind of worried for the Perlutskis. Perlutsky was his wife's family. So they wrote up a real tight will of store business that whenever one of the brothers die, the wife has to get paid out, and that's it. Oh yeah, in this other bunch that happened, it wasn't so much the paying out. The wife wanted to stay in the business, and they went broke, and they finally had to pay her out, and it was terrible. So they made a will that when the brother dies, one brother, whoever brother dies, the wife gets paid out right away. Within 5 years, and that's it. He was never dreaming. He was the youngest. He never dreamed he'd be the first one to die. So the will read to pay out in 5 years, and that's it. And so they followed the will. They didn't follow their heart. They followed the will. And there was a son left. And the son worked worked for the Penners, for Todd's. When his father was alive, he worked at Todd's. That's a separate store, a very fine store. And but he checked out. He thought he could make more money. He married a girl that came from a very wealthy home, and she wasn't happy. And he got a chance to go on the road, and he was gonna really make big money, big money. And he did. So he quit the store, and he went to work. And right then and there, the father dies. So the brothers were all prepared to pay him out, and that's it. Well, the wife didn't want to get paid out. She wanted to stay in the business. And she wanted the son to stay in the business, see? But she was a third owner, and they wouldn't let her. They wouldn't let her. They followed the will, see, and that was the problem. So to this day, she hates him. The wife hates him. And the son finally, and he was married. The son was married to a woman that was ugly, from a very wealthy home in some little town. She was ugly. The boys hated.
Physically ugly, or just
mouth
an
with
ugly
a mouth.
person?
No, physically she was okay.
Yeah, but
Had an ugly mouth. Nobody liked her. I didn't like her either, and I make excuses, but I couldn't make excuses for her. She was just she was just, I don't know. She was just a person you can't tolerate. She's better than you. She knows better. She's too good for you. That's the kind of a. She came from a home. I don't know if you know about these homes in the small towns. The oil. Her parents had a lot of money, and so they hated her. They didn't want them. They didn't want to have. If they, and he was married at that time. See, hadn't he been married, they would have left him in. See, but he was married to her. And then she would come in and she would try to run the show. So that's what happened. So they paid her out. They paid her, and they treated her fair, just the way the will said. That's the whole story. And she hates the Penners, the wife. She knows how well they're doing. But then the son...
What's her name again? What's her name?
Dorothy Penner.
Dorothy, yeah.
But then I have her picture there, right there. But then the son, and her got divorced. He finally divorced her. If he had divorced her way before, I think they'd have let him, they would have left it. And anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that he opened a store in Houston, the same type. You're not familiar with Todd's. It's a very fine store, and they handle the finest merchandise. It's like Hollywood. I mean, a $400 or $500 suit is nothing. I went in there one day and I saw some socks, $30 for one sock, a pair of socks, $30. $20 is the cheapest socks they have, and they do very well because they have that clientele. There's a lot of doctors and lawyers that really dress. I know Jack buys a lot of clothes. Of course, he gets 25% off. And so, and he called them. He wanted to know if it's okay if your name's at Todd's. They said, sure. And in fact, my brother even met him in New York, and one of the boys, and he introduced him to a lot of the houses, that they deal with. And they really helped them that way, And now they're good friends. And but she's staying away. She hates him. But that's the story. But she won't recognize that it was her husband that started the whole damn stuff. So if Sonny doesn't know that, I mean, he might, he wanted to know. He doesn't know what.
No, I think he knew it. He was just curious if the family.
Yeah.
His mother and Sam and Ben, he sort of thought were the ones that
Yeah. Well, I know his mother was always having problems. My sister was always having problems. I don't know. She was very critical. Instead of just leave him alone. If he wants to sing, let him sing. If he does something, let him. but she doesn't have that nature. See, she had to show him that she didn't approve. But at heart, she had the best heart in the world. She'd do anything. She was a wonderful sister. There's a lot of things I didn't like about her, but there's a lot of things she didn't like about me. I know she spoke with an accent. I just want to tell you the kind of person she was, with an accent, which was okay. And yet she would try, every time I say something, she would try to correct my English. She would try to correct a lot of things about me. I just left her. She has that nature, but they couldn't take it. But she was wonderful. If I needed a friend, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd call on her, and she'd be right there. And so was her husband. They were just wonderful to us. We had some hard times for a while there when we moved here. I mean, they would do anything in the world for us. So, I mean, I have a different nature. I just let them. I do what I want. If it makes her feel good to criticize me, that's fine. I don't have to worry about it.
But you have to admit that that's more unusual to have your reaction. Most people would have had your brother's reaction.
Yeah, they would. I don't know who the hell I take after. I don't take after anybody in the family. That's what they always tell me. Who do you take after? I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. It's not that I don't know those things and notice it. It's easier to ignore it. I say it's easier, really. Anybody can just fight over everything. I don't ignore my husband. If he makes me mad, I'll let him know. He's not listening.
I understand you all went back to Semyatich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that trip a little bit?
Oh, we had a wonderful time. Just wonderful. It was kind of upsetting because there was nobody there. Nobody there. That synagogue, my brother Sam, the one that's here, said, now don't forget to look see if that rock is still there. It was it was bigger than this table. And it was shining, so shiny. I guess all the kids sat on it because it was cool. It happened to be on the side where there's no sun. And it was so cool to sit there and we'd play, we'd play some kind of game where you throw. I've forgotten what it is. It's a Jewish game. And we'd play, and he said, see if that rock is still there. No rock, no synagogue. There was one shul, they called it. There was one little synagogue that was across from us, and there was a big shul, big, tremendous. Oh, I recognized the stairs. It still has the stairs going up, and that was 2-story, and it's it's an apartment house. They have different people living in there now. And there was a few little sites, I saw something there. That park I was telling you when I went to look for my mother. On each side they had lions, they had this big, and I noticed one lion, was there. But the houses, my brother was trying to point out some old houses that I said, okay, but I didn't recognize them. And they had a river, a big river, it's a big one, a big river. I mean, long and big. It's not there anymore. It's just a little ridge, just a little water running down there. What the hell they did with that big river, I don't know.
Well, we could have dammed it somewhere and,
caused
it to
that's
flow
not
someplace.
there. No, and then the church, I did recognize the church. The Russian churches have big balls,
Onion dome, yeah.
On the,
It's called an onion dome, yeah.
They have a lot of, I recognize that church.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't recognize a lot of things I didn't know. And, oh yeah, I told you about water. There was a place where you go for water and you see them carry, have you ever seen it where they carry 2 buckets on each side and it's carried on your shoulders?
With the yoke.
Yeah. Well, I have a picture, I think, I don't know where that is. And I recognize that, but it's not there. It's just a spot. I recognize the spot. The cemetery is all gone. I used to go with my mother to the cemetery because they had fruit trees there. And while Mama was by the grave, I'd go around picking up little berries. You know how kids do. It's not there. No, no cemeteries. I didn't even see a cemetery.
Mm.
And I don't know. I didn't see much. I told my nieces one time, I said, when we go to St. Mountain, I want to see if they still have ice cream. I remember once a year we'd have ice cream, and it was so good. I never tasted such ice cream. Of course, come to think of it, just got it once a year, anything would taste good. Anyway, so then we noticed a little ice cream stand. So we stopped and we all got ice cream. It tasted pretty good, but it's not like it tasted when I was 5 years old. And anyway, and so there was a Polish woman, and we had the guide with us, and he spoke Polish. So she was asking, she says, "Who are they? What are these people doing here in Polish?" Because we were 9 people, that's a lot of people. And so he told them that we used to live here at one time, and we just came, to look. But why did they leave if they came to look? I had no business leaving, Why did they leave? And so anyway, my brother asked him about the photography, the fella that had that home, and she pointed it out, but there's nothing there. And if that was it, then our house would have been just a little bit away from there, because we were just maybe a house apart. So, but no house. I mean, there's a house, but it's not ours. So it's kind of sad. We were trying to make believe that we see things, but we didn't really. Just a few things. Just trying to make believe that it's what we saw.
Now, when she was asking, why did you leave? Why didn't nobody said we were Jews or?
Oh no, God forbid! We were scared. And then there was a Polak, mean as hell. He said, "What are they doing here? What are you here for? If they liked there," and he heard it. He was standing there buying ice cream. "Why are they here? If they liked it so well, why in the hell are they here? Why'd they come here?" Real mean. Oh God. I don't know what he said. And I told my brother, and we told my nieces, we said, "Look, I think the best thing we can do is get the hell out of here." He says, "It's all they have. That's all we need is for telling we're Jews." And so we stayed a while, and it was nice. Then we went. They have a place there where. From there we went to Auschwitz. It's right close. That was not included in our tour. We paid extra to go, and then I thought, well, I don't think I want to go. And then I said, yeah, I better go. And I was glad I did, because you can't imagine what it's like. You can't imagine. Have you ever read about it or seen? Have you read about it or seen pictures or anything?
I do a lot of work for the United States Holocaust Museum.
Well, I want to tell you, I never believed what I saw. They have these, they're buildings, bunch of buildings that they had, They're all filled with clothes, glasses, talus, hip, all to the ceiling, shoes, baby shoes. They showed where they slept in the little narrow beds, 2 people in one bed. It just made me sick. And some of the people, there were 22 people in our tour. And the Jewish people were the only ones that went. And so, I don't know, it was sad. And just think, we could have been in it if my father hadn't gone.
Absolutely.
And when I was thinking about and then I thought they had pictures on the walls. I was looking at pictures and names. I thought maybe I'd see somebody. I didn't, well, I didn't, I didn't register with me the names or anything. Hundreds and hundreds of pictures all over. Ah, so my mother must have lost about 125 people. Nieces and nephews and sister. 3 sisters. So, if you just can't believe what you see. And then I say, you know what? It's the German people, the German Jews brought that on them. They brought it on. They were so crazy about the Germans. They were so crazy. The Jewish people didn't mean nothing to them. They were ashamed of being Jewish. They were ashamed. Right? No? You don't. I said they brought a lot of it on. I don't say that they brought a lot of it on. They just did not. I know that my husband's family, they're from, Germany or England. I was so embarrassed when I was in Gonzales. I couldn't stand it. These people, these rabbis, I call them schnorrs, they come for little donations, a little money. So they make the little towns. And when she would see one of them come in, she would hide. And she would tell these people that worked for her, and they were all just, I don't care to see that guy. I don't want no part of him. Just tell him. And she would walk out, wouldn't even give him $5. They just had no heart for the Jewish people. And it just used to make me sick when and of course I couldn't do anything. I was a kid. I was a young girl, young woman, and I just, turned away. Couldn't say anything to him. Anyway, that's the way it is. I know that there was this woman from Hadassah. She was a banker's wife, and she worked for the Youth Aliyah. And what happened? They dropped my hard drops. I'm always afraid it's going to fall. She came there and she called this family. She came to Germany and she called this family. And she told him, she's here. And he was a banker. See, they were friends of the husband. They were good friends. They were bankers and they had a lot of business together. And she says, I'm so glad you're here, and I want you to come over for dinner. I want you to come Friday night. We'll have Sabbath dinner. She said, but I want you to do me one favor. I'm having some friends, and I don't want you to mention anything about Hadassah or why you're here. She says, you have to promise me now. And she came only for one purpose, to raise money. See? And so I don't know if she went or not. She was here at that time. She was here, and she told us. And she said she did go, but she never. If she ever came back again, she said she would never call him, never. She had to promise not to mention the word Hadassah, or that she's here for that reason. Okay, now let's get back to business.
Well, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think you'd like to talk about?
Well, you're the doctor. I don't know. You look through
I
and
think
see
you did a pretty good job.
and you see what I can do.
We covered just about everything that I had here on my outline. I was just wondering if there's any sort of philosophy of life or message that you'd like to give to your children and grandchildren to.
Just be proud you're a Jew, and that's it.
And how do you think they should
Don't
do that?
let,
I mean,
yeah, just be proud and don't let anybody tell you different. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what to say. It's been nice. I think everybody has their ups and downs in life, and you just have to learn to take as it comes. Right?
you were going to just say something for the grandchildren here.
Yeah, but don't expect things to stay as they do, and that you'll always have what you have. The idea is to think it could happen, because it's happened before, and times are different. They're different now than they were. And as you get older, you expect more. You know, as you get older, you think back. I was like, I did it different. I did more. It's not going to be that way as you get older. As you get old, just make the best of what happens.
All right. Well, thank you very
Does
much
that
for
make
doing
sense?
this. Absolutely. And I think that that's a very good philosophy to have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because I know by me, things aren't the same. And if I'm going to start telling them what all I did for my mother, the kids will get mad. They won't come near me because they're not going to do that. They're not going to do what I did. First of all, they're working. I would have liked to have gone to work, but I didn't because my mother needed me. See, that came first. But it's not going. It doesn't happen. It doesn't. Now, if they want to go to work, they'll go to work regardless whether you need them or not. Am I right?
I think it's a whole
It's a
different
more
attitude
selfish.
of parents
It's a more
and children.
selfish world now.
And it's a different attitude.
And I try to tell that to my husband. He sometimes gets a little upset because when his mother had surgery, he came from Gonzales, and he stayed. They rented a room around there somewhere, and he stayed with her the whole time she stayed here. And at night, he knew what room she was in, and if he saw a light in that room, he would get worried and get real upset. And I says, it doesn't happen anymore. The children are more selfish. As time goes on, they'll get more selfish because they have more. Right? They have more. They're used to it, and they're spoiled.
I think also there's a different attitude of parents and children.
It's an attitude that they have.
I mean, I think I have wonderful children, and my children say things to me that I could never have said to my parents under any circumstance.
That's me. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't say it. I mean, not that I wouldn't dare. I just have more. I don't know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Like when they all went to that party at the St. Anthony. It was a beautiful affair, and we were dressed, ready to go, and when she was moaning and groaning and she was hurting, how could I enjoy myself? I just stayed home. And but it wouldn't happen now. I would say, well, I'll call you, Mama, or I'm sorry, Mama, but we got to go, blah blah blah. Right? I know. I don't. My son, I see him on Saturday. He comes and we go for lunch, and then he takes me shopping. The reason I see it be drive now, but I could shop myself. But I hate to drag it in. Like I buy a gallon of milk, so damn heavy, it's getting too heavy for me, to drag in a gallon of milk and then a gallon of something else. And so he brings it in and he puts it away. He knows where to put it away. So I don't know how much longer it's going to last. But as long as he wants to do it, I'm going to let him do it. But I don't dare tell him that I don't, I can do it myself now. I don't dare because that little help that he gives me, I appreciate. But that's once a week I see him. At night, they come home, he's tired, he wants to go out. I never say anything. I never say a word. I never complain. I never tell him nothing. Because, you know, it's different. And the wife could care less, you know, because I'm just a mother-in-law. So what the heck, you know. She's got a mother. She don't even care about her mother that much. They're selfish. They go on trips. I never did leave my mother and go on a trip. I made all kinds of excuses to my husband why we can't go. I didn't tell my husband I can't leave my mother. See, that's the secret. I didn't tell, oh, I can't leave. Mom is so sick, I can't. I always put it on me why I can't go. So, but you can't get them to do that now. They don't want to do it. They don't want. They just hope for the best. They hope that when they go on a trip, I'll be here when they come back. So that's the whole story. I don't think things have changed for the better, but we just have to accept it.
Well, thank you very much for doing this. It's been
well, I
terrific.
enjoyed it. It's really been fun. I was worried. I didn't think I would be able to tell you anything, but you already had most. You had most of it.
Well, you did a great job.
You had most of it. All I could do just add a few little things. And Sonny's, I hope he'll be happy.
Sure he
He's
will.
real sweet. He called me the first time for you to come. My husband had just gotten home from the hospital. And he said it would take about 7 hours. I said, Sonny, I can't spare 7 hours. I said, Uncle Abe is just from the hospital and he needs care. I said, you know, I'm a nurse, I'm a housekeeper, I'm a wife, I'm a shopper, I do everything. And I'm not a chicken either. So I says, call me back. Call me back in a couple of months. But 7 hours, but this was nice.
Well, we did about 4 hours, so you did a great job.
This was great.